Board of Education to order. We will start with roll call, please.
Kevin Boyle,
Here.
Michelle Brecken,
Here.
DJ Donlinger,
Here.
Randy Heidemann, Sarah Spear,
Here.
John Ward,
Here.
5 of the 6 present.
We have a quorum. All right, next up is the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, we've got a fairly lengthy agenda tonight, so we'll just dive right in with recognitions. Director Ward, if you'd start us off with the first bullet point, please.
Very good, thank you. Congratulations to the 454 2023 graduates from Brainerd High School, Brainerd Learning Center, Lincoln Education Center, and Graduation Equivalency Diplomas, GED.
Congratulations to the following Brainerd students who completed in the final Math Masters competition at Sourcewell. The Math Masters Mathematics Competition Program challenges 4th, 5th, and 6th grade students to use critical thinking and problem-solving skills in mathematics. Students compete as individuals and on teams in 8 rounds of competition. Students' academic effort and achievement are recognized in each competition element: fact drill, individual round, and team competition. Students from Brainerd were Maya O'Neill, Fern Schmidt, Emily Smith, Sam Porter, Justice Anderson, and Sam Sundberg.
So as chair, I assign myself this next one out of an act of mercy to the rest of you. Congratulations to the following student athletes for signing letters of intent on May 17th, 2023 to participate in sports at their prospective colleges. Emma Balsley, University of Wisconsin Stout for girls soccer. Emily Bastian, UMD Duluth for track. Jonathan Benson, University of South Dakota Sioux Falls for baseball. Damian Bentho, CLC for football. Bailey Clausen, North Dakota State for dance. Keegan Davidge, Eastern Kentucky University for golf. Brenna Deason, North Dakota State for track. Hannah Dreetz, University of Minnesota for cross-country running. Gabby Ekman, St. Scholastica for girls soccer. Wyatt Gabrielson, St. Olaf University for baseball and diving. Marcelo Getty, Central Lakes College for football. Violet Goodwin, University of Minnesota Duluth for track. Isaac Hansen, St. Cloud State University baseball. Gavin Holtzel, St. Olaf University for track. Max Holmstrom, University of Nebraska for golf. Caitlin Kennedy, Moorhead State University for cross-country running. Mason Keepers, St. Cloud State University for swimming. Caleb Lang, University of South Dakota for football. Sophie Matson, Central Lakes College softball. Isabella Olson, U.S. Naval Academy for diving. Abby Paulson, U of Health Sciences and Pharmacy in lacrosse. John Pakarich, Bemidji State University for basketball. Macy Peterson, Post University for hockey. Julia Rademacher, University of Minnesota Duluth for cross-country and track. Dawson Ringler, University of Nebraska for golf. Bria Sawyer, St. Benedict University lacrosse. Kate Statham, St. Benedict University for volleyball. And Caden Sumption for St. Cloud State University for swimming.
Congratulations to Katie Jones, Brainerd High School interpreter, for being awarded the Shining Star Award for recognition and dedication to children who are deafblind and their families by the Deafblind Services of Minnesota.
Congratulations to Izzy Olson and Dawson Ringler for being state qualifiers for the Minnesota State High School League Golf Tournament. Dawson Ringler was the medalist for Section 8 AAA.
Congratulations to the Warrior Girls track and field team for winning the 2023 Central Lakes Conference Sportsmanship Award. 16 athletes qualified for the state meet. Girls state qualifiers: Brenna Deason, 100 meters, pole vault, 4x100 meters, Emily Bastian, 800 meters, and 4x8. Cora Clow, high jump, Violet Goodwin, 100-meter hurdles, Brooke Wentz, 4x8-meter relay, Annalise Bard, 4x8-meter relay, Caitlin Kennedy, 4x800-meter relay, and Kate Statham for the 4x100-meter relay, along with Molly Hagley, Ava Lonely for 4x100, and boys state qualifiers, Brandon Stark for 400 meters and 800 meters, and for the 4x200, Dylan Gross, shot put, Isaac Millay, 4x200-meter relay, or 4x200, relay. Dylan McLaughlin, 4x200-meter relay. Charlie Bakula for the relay, and Joe Smith, pole vault.
We'll go around the horn, starting with you again, Director Ward.
Congratulations to Rod Ryer and Ashley Rutman, They were recognized as the Section 8 AAA Head Track Coaches of the Year.
Congratulations to the Brainerd High School Super Mileage Club. They took second place in the Super Sport Division at the state meet, which was held at BIR. They set a new Brainerd High School record with a run of 430 miles per gallon.
Congratulations to the Warrior Girls Softball Team for being the CLC champions.
Congratulations to the Nisswa May Student Character Award winners. Renee Lamuska. Mackenzie Norgard, Sadie Smith, Francesca Mace, Otis Maust, Isla May Koloski, Bryony Dufour, Finley Peterson, Sabina Gish Simonson, Marlena Yuri, Alexis Olson, Madeline Smith, Braylon Isle, Maverick Robertson, Ethan Johnson, Corbin Martinez, Landon Wadelich, Candace Teston, Kyle Schweitz, Ziva Bethke, Amelia Sandvig, Neve Romer, Stella Lesh, Walker Pierce, and Bryn Ulrich.
Congratulations to the Warrior Track and Field teams. Girls team finished 10th place with 28 points, and boys team finished 25th place with 12 points. The state place winners were Brenna Deason, pole vault, 11 feet 9 inches, third place, school record. Brenna Deason, 100-yard dash, 12:01, fifth place, school record. Kate Statham, A.V. Loney, Molly Hagley, Brenna Deason, 4x100 relay, 48:78, third place, second place honor roll. Brooke Wenz, Annalise Baird, Caitlin Kennedy, Emily Bastian, 4x800 relay, 9 minutes, 37.85 seconds. Or no, well, whatever, it was 9 minutes, yeah, 37.85. Seventh place, Brandon Stark, 400-meter dash, 50-10, eighth place. Dylan Gross, shot put, 57.8.5, second place. Cora Clow, high jump, 5 feet 2 inches, sixth place. Advancing to the finals on Saturday are Brandon Stark, 400-meter dash, 49.33 prelims. Brenna Deason, 100-meter dash, 12.36 prelims. Kate Statham, A.V. Loney, Molly Hagley, Brenna Deason, 4x100 relay, 48.94 prelims, third place honor roll. Brenna Deason, pole vault, and Brooke Wentz, Annalise Baird, Caitlin Kennedy, and Emily Bastian, 4x800 relay.
In addition, Brandon Stark, 800-meter run in 1 minute 58 seconds, 13th place, 7th place honor roll. Joe Smith, pole vault, 11 feet 6 inches, 16th place. The 4x200-meter relay with a time of 1 minute 29.9 seconds, 12th place. Violet Goodwin, 100-meter hurdles, 16.89 in 15th place. And Emily Bastian, 800-meter run in 2 minutes 18 seconds, 0.67, 15th place.
Very good, thank you, that's a lot.
That's a
Now,
lot.
we get the summer off from a lot of this.
I don't know, we're busy all summer long too.
Great, great. All right, next up, public input. And I have been remiss over the last few meetings of reading this statement before we enter into public comment, so let me go ahead and read this out loud. A member of the public can address the board during this time. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Complaints or allegations against students or any employees of the district may not be discussed due to data privacy. Complaints or allegations must be submitted in writing to Superintendent Hahn. The Board of Education nor the superintendent will converse with guests or address the topics discussed during public comment.
Hey, Kevin,
Yes.
we need to approve the agenda. We
did we
jumped
skip
right
it?
to the recognitions without the approval of the agenda.
Motion.
What,
Second. As amended.
as amended?
Yeah, we skipped that, I'm sorry. Okay, all in favor of approving the agenda?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, now on to public comment. So our first individual for public comment, Mark Olson, please.
Father God, I ask you to give these people eyes to hear and ears to hear and eyes to see in Jesus' name. I'm Mark Olson. I want to give you some information tonight. Providing sexually explicit material to children is a criminal violation of Minnesota state statute. I make that statement of fact because there's sexually explicit material of bookshelves at Forest View Middle School. State statute 609.352 includes this header, which is entirely capitalized. Solicitation of children to engage in sexual conduct, communication of sexually explicit materials to children. This is a portion of the relevant subdivision of 609. Distributing any material, language, or communication, including photographic or video image that relates to or describes sexual conduct to children. Let me repeat that. Distributing any material that relates to or describes sexual conduct to a child. There is one huge problem, though. Let's say you have 2 copies of the same sexually explicit book in Forest View Middle School, and another identical book is from me. I would be charged with a crime for providing the book to my teenage neighbor, but the same teenage neighbor could check the book out of the middle school library without any consequences whatsoever for the district. The reason is clear why there is a criminal state statute making it illegal for sexual material to children, because providing material to children is wrong. No child benefits from having sexually explicit material in the school district libraries, and the public education system is once again deceiving its stakeholders, the taxpayers, through some obscure legislative manipulation. The only difference between sexually explicit material allowed in one instance but not the other is simply the physical location: a dental office, a bike store, a beauty shop, et cetera, et cetera. All would be charged with a crime if they provided sexually explicit materials where children could read it, but not the school library. We can do better, folks. Furthermore, your own policy provides a mandated reporting complaint form when sexually explicit material is provided to children. That's your own policy you passed, 414.1. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mr. Olson.
Next, we have Gail Holmes, I believe.
Hi. My name is Gail Holmes, and I will read from 2 different books from the Forest View Middle School Library. The first book is called Kite Runner. It describes a young Afghanis boy being brutally raped by 3 others. Page 75. Hassan lay with his chest pinned to the ground. Kamal and Wally each gripped an arm, twisted and bent at the elbow so that Hassan's hands were pressed his back. Asif was standing over them, the heel of his snow boots crushing the back of Hassan's neck. All I want you weaklings to do is hold them down. Can you manage that? Wally and Kamal nodded. They looked relieved. Asif knelt behind Hassan, put his hands on Hassan's hips, lifted his bare buttocks. He kept one hand on Hassan's back and undid his own belt buckle with his free hand. He unzipped his jeans, dropped his underwear. He positioned himself behind Hassan. Hassan didn't struggle, didn't even whimper. He moved his head slightly, and I caught a glimpse of his face, saw the resignation in it. It was a look I had seen before. It was the look of the lamb. I stopped watching, turning away from the alley. Something warm was running down my wrist. I blinked, saw I was still biting down on my fist, hard enough to draw blood from the knuckles. I realized something else. I was weeping. From just around the corner, I could hear Asif's quick, rhythmic grunts. The following is from the book, What Girls Are Made Of by Alina Arnold, page 57. I go down on my knees like the guy on the bridge, except instead of tightening a harness, I'm unfastening his pants. I pull him out of his underwear and he's soft in my hand. I don't look up at his face before I open my mouth and pull him into it. And I pull and I suck until he grows hard and he makes sounds that means he likes it. And I keep going and going, and when he says, I'm going to come, I don't pull away. The jet of him is warm and salty and tastes like thickened sweat. He breathes hard, and his hands are tight fists at his eyes.
Thank you, Gail.
Thank you, Gail. So you have to live through that.
Next is Doug Kern.
Yeah. So I don't ramble, I got it written down here. You all know that as school district employees, as board of directors, that you are mandated legally to report, and you're required to report whenever a child is provided with sexually explicit material. 2 months ago, in the board meeting here, I read the policies and that were approved, the MSBA 414, which requires you to report if and when a child has been provided with sexual explicit material. For instance, if you saw a student in the school with a Penthouse magazine, you'd be required to fill out a mandated reporter form. Makes sense, doesn't it? Not only does the state statute 609.352 legally prohibit the school district from providing sexual explicit material to your children, your own policy 414 does as well. Here's what's relevant, the text from MSBA 414, item L. Sexual abuse means the subjection of a child by a person responsible for the child's care, by a person who has a significant relationship to the child, as defined in Minnesota Statute 609.341, subdivision 15, or by a person that's in current or recent position of authority, such as defined in Minnesota Statute 609.341, subdivision 10, to any act which constitutes a violation of Minnesota statutes prohibiting criminal sexual conduct. Such acts include sexual penetration, sexual contact, solicitation of children to engage in sexual conduct, and communication of sexually explicit materials to children. I can read that again. And communication of sexually explicit materials to children. Now you may say that you have an exemption from criminal statutes such as 609.341, and you may even defend the exemption and how it came to be, as devious as it is, but you cannot exempt yourselves from carrying out what your own official policies state. These are policies which you committed to. Y'all committed to that before taxpayers, the taxpaying parents of this district. So you're on notice to remove all sexual explicit materials from the school district libraries and classrooms. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. I believe I'm getting this right. Sherry Wiltsey is up next. Do I have that right?
Yes.
Okay. Welcome, Sherry.
Good evening. My name is Sherry Wiltsey. I'm a retired teacher from the Brainerd School District. I taught here 21 years. I taught 8th and 9th grade. I am going to read from a book called What Girls Are Made Of by Alina Arnold, and these are excerpts. Page 19, I laid a towel on the sheet in case I bled, and then I watched Seth roll the condom over his penis. And I rested my head on it, my pillow, and I watched his hands push into the flesh of my thighs, spreading them apart, and I watched him maneuver his latex-wrapped erection as he pushed and tried to get inside. Page 20. If Seth wants to have sex and I'm on my period, I'm the one to suggest that I give him a head. It's the way his fingers look glazed like donuts after they have been inside of me. This is on page 34. Seth thrusts forward into the bed and between my legs and against the thin barrier that separates us. My thong gets twisted as Seth takes it off, and I hear it rip when he grows impatient and yanks too hard. I shouldn't care, but I do, because the thong is brand new and it matches the bra, and lace can't be sewn back together. But I don't say anything. And then Seth rises above me like a wave and smiles. I smile back, and then he pushes into me hard and fast, and it hurts and feels good all mixed together. He puts one hand on my stomach to hold me still. He likes it best, he says, because when I don't move a lot, when I let him be in charge. And I know, too, that he likes to feel himself inside of me, under his hand, the back and forth motion of it. It's clear from his face when he's close, and I brace myself for a second for the way he usually pulls out roughly right at the end. He thrusts again and again hard into the center of me, and I want to like it, but I sort of don't. And I feel him spasm and spasm, and he makes a sound that would be funny in different circumstances before he is still. Fuck, he says, collapsing against me.
Next, we have Tony Bauer.
Good evening. Tonight, we have all heard about district policies and state statutes. We've also heard quotations from actual library books from the good people who have stood here before you expressing their concern and outrage over what is being made available to our children in Forest View Middle School. Middle school, grades 5 through 8, obviously all students well under 18 years of age. We can talk about policies and statutes all night long, but everyone in public education knows exactly what is going on and exactly why it's going on. One thing I know is it causes me to wonder how many copies of the Bible are in Forest View Library, or in the entire school district for that matter. Our children are being used as disposable, sacrificial instruments deployed in order to transform America by way of divisive indoctrination and cruel manipulation. This makes all of you complicit in that ungodly endeavor. It's evident that public education has become subverted and perverted to the point where the ones we care about the most have become its most numerous victims. Tonight, I urge you to not attempt the often repeated tactic of portraying this group of concerned citizens as wanting to quote unquote ban books or trample the First Amendment either, as many will be tempted to do. In reality, what we want to do is restrict children who would be legally protected by criminal statute in any other public arena for being exposed to pornography or given access to pornography. After all, at the May 8th school board meeting, Mr. Boyles expressed his concern for school bus drivers and his opposition to them being exposed to quote-unquote profanity-laced tirades. Don't we owe the children of this district that same level of concern? It's morally reprehensible for you and people throughout public education, including in this district, to feign concern for children's mental stability when you knowingly facilitate and foster an atmosphere which would be illegal anywhere else, that in truth creates, feeds, and increases mental instability in children by exposing them to various physical and psychological trauma, such as gender dysphoria, risk of early pregnancy, possible body mutilation, and potentially deadly venereal diseases. Tonight, through vivid examples, you have all been made aware of your public, legal, and moral failures regarding this issue. We pray that you will make the necessary changes required of moral human beings to return ISD 181 to the status of a legitimate traditional educational showplace. In the meantime, you have all been called out publicly tonight. Our minimum expectation is that you will immediately comply with the legal requirements required of any other public institution called for by Minnesota laws and your own district policy. Your own policy, for goodness sakes. Ladies and gentlemen of the school board, our children have been placed in positions of great risk, and we demand that this practice stop now. The pretending is over. We see through you. Thank you.
do I have this right? Is it Arthur Lordbach?
Yeah, we're done.
Good evening. I'm a man of philosophy. It's one of my passions with a few other. Hi, John. When you're dealing with philosophy, one of the most important things is the definition of words. Hopefully you would agree. I know you, normally I like to have dialogues and we can't do that tonight, I understand. If you got questions for me, it's arthurlordbach@gmail.com or 829-4664. Would love to hear from you, okay? So if I asked you what the definition of integrity was, how would you answer me? Okay? One of the most frequent answers is doing what's right when nobody's watching. Okay? There's a gentleman, Stephen Carter. He's a black lawyer. He wrote several books, but his one book deals with integrity. Okay? He has 3 items to have integrity. One is knowing what's ethical. But the question is, what's your foundation of ethics based upon? And I'm just going to give you a few things here. Who determines what's ethical? If man is the arbiter of ethics, which man is it? Hitler or Mother Teresa? For it's man, then there are no objective ethical code to follow. C.S. Lewis wrote, everybody knows what's right, but nobody does it. Neil Postman said, we live in a society where a lot of people are ethical egoists. A big word for ethical terms, if you're into philosophy. They pretend to act ethical to your face, but behind your back, they will do anything that is to their advantage. They're practicing survival of the fittest. For Christopher Hitchens, we live in a hedonistic society where what is ethical is what brings you the most pleasure. George Will said there is nothing so vulgar left in our experience for which we cannot transport some professor from somewhere to justify it. Viktor Frankl, a survivor of the concentration camps, wrote, I am absolutely convinced that the gas chambers of Auschwitz were ultimately prepared not by some Nazi ministry, but in the lecture halls of nihilistic scientists and professors. This is practicing evolutionary ethics put into practice. What you teach affects people. Atheist Richard Dawkins, in his book River Out of Eden, wrote, there is nothing right or wrong. When he was asked what Hitler did was wrong, he said he could not call it wrong even though he didn't like it. Okay? That's his ethical theory, that there is nothing right or wrong. And we could talk about that more if we could talk. Bonhoeffer said the biggest error that man could make was thinking that he could decide what's right and wrong. Number 2 of Mr. Carter was speaking up for what's right.
Sorry, Arthur, but your 3 minutes is concluded. Thank you.
Well, my goodness, thank you very much. You want to talk? I could go for 3 hours without a problem, okay?
Some of us up here feel your pain.
Okay? But unfortunately, for medical reasons, I'm going to leave. So if you want to get the rest, give me a call.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And our final public comment for this evening, Lori Shepard.
My name is Lori Shepard. I have 3 grandchildren in your district. And I came to this board about a year ago, and I asked for some information on what was being taught in the school. It was not specific to sexuality. I was not talked to by anybody on the board. Nobody followed up to find out what I needed. I had asked that night, tell me someone who will help me look at the books that these kids are being taught of. Nothing happened. Today, I was told that someone might be here with some actual information on what is being told. I have heard some of that, It is a verbal porn. And you, and you, and you, and you, and you, and you are providing that for our children. I certainly hope someone will get a hold of me this time and at least help me find out what you're teaching our children.
Thank you. Okay, onward and forward to the approval of the minutes from the prior meeting.
Well, let's hang on a second. I'd like to make a motion that we put this on our next agenda for next month. Something needs to be done. I'm shocked. I'm sure that there's plenty of teachers and principals and everybody else in here that are shocked too. And I don't know what I need to do that, but I think we should at least dig in and figure out what the hell's going on here. Because we don't need that crap. I mean, is this stuff accessible to fifth graders? Do we know that?
Yes. I can say a few things, but I don't know if this is part of the.
I don't know.
It's
if
not
it is
permitted
either.
under our current thing. What I would say, Director
All that
Dunlinger,
information is online. The
We
resource
can-
selection process.
so just so the public is aware, we have a board retreat coming up this Friday where the entire school board will be together to discuss topics that don't come up in the normal course of the board business that you see here on these meetings. These meetings are more tightly regulated by open meeting law, Robert's Rules of Order, and other functions of a business meeting that's related to a school board. So it creates constraints. Some are self-imposed, some are statutory, all of which are probably not best, at least initially discussed in this venue, but rather in that kind of a venue. What I can guarantee you is we will have this on our discussion board for Friday. And then from there, if we choose to bring it forward to the meeting, the next board meeting, we certainly can. I think it's fair to say that several of us have questions.
Well, my understanding of Robert's rules is that if someone would second this, then we could just guarantee it'd be on the agenda.
That is also
And
correct.
I think that would be a good look for all these folks that came out today. So can we just do that? Will somebody give me a second? And so we can just discuss it. Doesn't mean we're gonna change anything.
I'll second.
Thank you.
All right, so we have a motion from Director Dondlinger with a second from Director Brecken to add the topic of the specific library books that were mentioned in public comment this evening on the July board meeting agenda.
Thank you.
Did I state that correctly, Director?
I think so.
Great. All right, so all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. All right, I apologize, I didn't catch the verbals. So did we get an aye?
I said aye.
Okay, so Janet, can you record that? Motion passed. Motion carries. This will be added to the July board meeting as a presentation and
Thank you.
perhaps action item.
Thanks. Thanks, Michelle. Hoofed.
Okay, now we're on to the approval of the meeting minutes from May 8th.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Director Spear with a second by Director Dondlinger. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, next up, we have the consent calendar with several line items, as you can see below here. I don't know if all of you had time to adequately review the board packet in case you have any questions, specifically on substitute rates or healthiest you. These came up through committees.
I saw them.
I'd like to open it up for discussion on this.
I wasn't able to access the SRO agreements. Is there anything that we need to be more specifically aware of?
So I guess the short answer from my perspective is that these have been greatly upgraded from the last time that we renewed with both the city of Baxter for the Forest View SRO and the city of Brainerd for the Brainerd High School SRO. Director Dondlinger and I got a good look at these the other day in the Finance Committee one. I have some minor reservations about the Brainerd contract. It doesn't have the same language the Baxter one does. Namely, there's a section in there where it doesn't, the Baxter contract has a phrase in there that says that the district has a representative that will be part of the interview process for an SRO. The Brainerd contract doesn't have that, but I don't think that would preclude us from voting on it tonight. I think it's, if we forced it back, what would happen is it would have to go back to the Brainerd City Council, back to their city attorney, and then we might be running up against, you know, being able to have a contract in place for an SRO for the beginning of the school year, as I understand it. So my own recommendation, based on I've done a ton of research on this that I can brief you on later, but I'm very comfortable with the contracts as presented. Anything you would add, DJ?
No, I think your points were valid, and I think next time we do this, we'll probably get ahead of it and change them up a little bit. But at the last minute, we needed to probably approve these, and they look good to me too, so I don't have any questions.
And they're way better, the Brainerd one in particular is way better than what we had 2 years ago. The one 2 years ago looked like two guys drew it on a napkin at Shep's.
So some of those are the best ones, you know. You got sold a couple cars that way, Michelle.
Sure.
The healthiest you, just to kind of, I don't think that we presented this last time when we were talking about the health insurance premiums and everything we talked about at the last board meeting. So this is like a companion program that replaces a different one we had called Included Health, or it was called Ground Rounds before that. And this, for the same money we were paying for the Included Health, this one is providing the same service, which is essentially a second opinion service for people that go to a healthcare provider and want to get a second opinion. But it also expands way beyond that and provides a number of different telehealth type resources that you can get to a lot faster. Like you can get a dermatologist appointment in like 2 weeks, where if you try to get a dermatologist appointment around here, I don't know if anybody's tried, it can take up to 2 to 3 months. Mental health resources are available through Teladoc services. It expanded. So in the benefits committee, we determined that this was a much better use of those dollars. We felt like it would be more expansively used by staff than the Included Health. The Included Health, when it was used, was very beneficial, but we only had, I think, was it 17 or 27 staff or something that used it.
It wasn't very highly
It wasn't
utilized.
very high. We anticipate a much greater rollout support with this program to get higher adoption levels and get people to understand the value of it, not just to the district in terms of lower claims, but in terms of the individuals getting better access to more diverse types of healthcare support, mental health care support, and possibly even be able to say, for those that are in the HSA-enabled plan, it'll enable them, because this service doesn't count, it's not billed. It's just it's an included service. So if they use that, instead of a doctor visit, they aren't triggering any kind of copay or HSA withdrawal or anything like that.
So similar to the old employee assistance program?
More like the previous Ground Rounds. Was the
Okay.
previous one that was in place.
Okay.
So how long's the commitment for?
1 year. We decided we would evaluate it for 1 year, and then we would re-up if we liked it.
How much is it?
About 110 grand, I think. How much? 126. Thank God
And we
Angie's
had
here.
20 people using the last one?
Yeah, and we were paying 124 for that or something, right?
So what's the plan to get some people?
So we have a commitment
On
from
this bad
our
boy.
broker to come in and do robust rollout support at the beginning of the school year to really highlight the availability and the advantages of this thing. And then, so they've committed to physically come up and do some rah-rah sessions to try to get people kind of excited about it and get more utilization.
Well, let's make sure, and I don't know, Angie, is this your deal? Are you coming in charge of this? So let's make sure that either we see our claims stay flat, or our claims go down, or a huge success with this, or let's not waste the money. You know what I mean? I mean, it seems like a good deal. You know, they're not gonna charge anybody anything to call in, so I don't know why it wouldn't be a good thing. And if it could keep our costs down, you know, if you go through these slides, which I think you all have, you see like with an emergency room visit is $1,200, this is zero. So in theory, this should knock down our claims, and if it does, then it's a terrific thing. If it doesn't, and we're just wasting money for the fun of it, then I think that somehow next year we should, when you come with this, you should show us what happened.
Yeah, so our benefits committee meets roughly quarterly. So that was a takeaway. The first thing that we did in that meeting was to, like Ryan was there. I don't think anybody else in this room was there other than Angie and Marcy. But we had representatives from every unit in the school staffing thing, and there was a lot of excitement about the potential of it.
It looks pretty cool.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
And then, previous board meetings, we've talked about trying to promote, educate, and encourage staff to participate in a wellness program. And this is the lead to that. And I know that I think all the, as you said, all the major, all the labor units have also said that they would participate and encourage their membership to participate in this as well.
That's correct. I mean, to Director Donlinger's point, I'd like to see some more organization around that idea, just so we can execute on it.
Yes, so, I'm going to encourage our administration, along with our labor organizations, to work together on this and to promote it as a unit, all of us together, and, 100%. And that way we will rightly, be able to save, so.
I mean, I could speak for the private sector, like if we had had access to this in where I've worked for the last, various places for the last 25 years, I've been all over this. It's an extremely good benefit.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. You just have to remember that, and I'm not lecturing, maybe I am, I'm sorry if I am, is these things don't just take care of themselves.
Right.
So unless we continually put this in front of everybody, it's like, wow, that's a great idea. And then 3 months from now when you're sick, you forgot all about it and you don't even have a login because you never signed up for it.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm just going to the doctor.
Would that we would have had this last year when everybody was having extreme difficulty getting access to mental health resources.
Yep.
Here, the wait is, Angie, keep me honest, I don't know if you have that stat in front of you, but it's like 5 to 7 days or something. Yeah. Where, I mean, and trying to find a healthcare, a mental health care practitioner in this town could be measured in months, even now.
Yeah.
So
I wanted to fix my neck. Can I get a login for this damn thing?
No, but they can-
I've been trying for 25 years.
I can fix it for you in the parking lot after the meeting.
I'm watching.
A lot of effort put into that, baby.
Mr. Chair, also, can I add another couple things, please, on the consent calendar?
Yep.
The staff changes, adds or deletes, I looked through that whole list or whatever, and I want to reiterate again something that I had said earlier in a previous school board meeting is, as we have now looked at the overall picture for next year's staffing, that the non-tenured people that are qualified to fill a position and are quality people, that we encourage them to come back and serve us. So I just want to make that point again and stress it again. And the last thing I want to say is, and I talked to, I don't remember if it was Janet or who it was, but, I looked at the gifts and, I got to put my glasses on.
The
Gifts and
PTO.
grants that we get each month that's reported to us. And, it's always significant to me. And I asked, are we sending thank you notes, thank you letters? And Superintendent Hahn and Janet have both told me that they send letters and thank yous to everybody that donates to us. And I thank you for that, because that's important. And thank you to the folks that have been giving us gifts and grants. It truly helps.
And then Director Ward and I sit on the committee that brought forward the new substitute rates that you see in here. Maybe, I don't want to put you on the spot, John, but you want to say anything about that? I mean, I'll start by saying we feel like we did some really good work there to get our substitute rates up to where we actually can get people. We were way under some of the surrounding school districts in what we were paying, or at least significantly enough that we were having a real struggle. So we feel like this is a step in the right direction to allow us to better fill those substitute roles. Those are extremely important roles.
Yeah, and COVID taught us that, honestly, because, in my opinion, because as the need has risen for substitutes, and we're not as competitive with the substitute pay, that transfers, in my opinion, to the perhaps some of the I don't want to say quality, but maybe experienced people coming here rather than going somewhere else. Okay, so I'm really excited about and not only educators, but we also talked about education assistants, all of the labor unions. So I'm excited that it's going to go forward. It's going to be better going forward. So
thanks, John.
Yep,
appreciate it.
We'll be more competitive, is what you're saying.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
Okay.
I'll give you a motion.
Sounds good.
Second.
All right, we have a motion from Director Dondelinger and a second from Director Ward to approve the consent calendar as presented. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving on to new business, our first action item tonight is the approval of the administration recommendation to issue 23-24 contract to the following certified staff members, resulting in the granting of tenure. Dr. Hahn?
So the following staff members have completed 3 successful years of teaching, as well as completing their teacher development and evaluation process. So I recommend the following teachers: Michelle Anderson, Riley Atkinson, Katrina Atkinson, Pamela Klontz, Emily Krielman, Sarah Dano, Tiffany Gilb, Gracie Grauman, Jeremiah Johnson, Megan Johnson, Jennifer Larson, Jason Leonard, Kristen Moss Gotti, Jessica Rindall, Brenna Rono, Daniel Ryan, Taylor Salisbury, Kira Schlomer, Deborah Schluter, Jesse Shepard, Melissa Shepard, Amy Struther, Sandra Taugis, and Erica Tweet for tenure with Brainerd Public Schools. This is a big deal in a teacher's career, and they have demonstrated high-quality teaching.
Thank you, Dr. Hahn.
I'll make a motion that we approve.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Director Brecken with a second by Director Spear to approve the tenure for the above teachers. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, now we're going to roll into some presentations, starting with Beth Cooper on our annual ACOMP report.
Good evening. My name is Beth Cooper. I'm the ACOMP coordinator here for Brainerd Public Schools. This presentation, I'm going to give you some information, and then at the end, we'll be requesting approval for continuation of the ACOMP program for the 23-24 school year. ACOMP is an alternative teacher professional pay system. We use it as a professional learning structure. Thank you. Thank you, Tim. And with a pay for performance component, so there's pay with it, but really it is for improving our instructional skills, giving teachers the opportunity to work together to do that. We really want to work on increasing student achievement, reward our teachers for high quality teaching, and then ensure that all of our students are learning. This is an agreement between the Education Minnesota Brainerd membership. So in early spring, usually we have a presentation that we give to them, and they have to vote. 60% of our EMB membership has to vote that we agree to participate in this. Then it comes to you, the school board, in June, where you have in the past given approval for that. And then after that, it goes to the Department of Ed goes to the state. So it's a partnership between the three. The ACOMP team, the ACOMP program is overseen by the ACLT or ACOMP leadership team. This governing body is made up of 3 district administrators and 3 teachers. Our teachers serve a 3-year term. Admin reps are appointed. We meet monthly for those. There are 4 state-required components. I'm going to talk a little bit about, I'm just going to name them now, and then we're going to talk about what those look like in our practice here in Brainerd. So there's a teacher evaluation component. This is our peer coaching and mentoring model. We have a job-embedded professional development. That's our professional learning communities, otherwise known as PLCs. We like our acronyms here. The third piece is performance pay and alternative salary schedules. So for different positions, teachers are paid stipends for this. Also, they are paid a stipend for participating. And then there are opportunities for teachers to participate in career ladder positions and take some leadership within the schools with their colleagues. In our practice, what this looks like is, number 1, the teacher evaluation and the peer coaching and mentoring. Every single certified staff member who's not an administrator is considered a teacher in this language, and we're assigned a peer coach or a mentor. You undergo 2 or 3 conferences or observation cycles over the course of that time with their coach. The coaches are trained to observe the teachers and give data and look for certain things. We use a Danielson rubric for that. When teachers complete this and do their observations, the augmentation for that is $1,260. So it's a significant amount of money, but it also represents that we believe that teachers, coaching teachers and talking to another person, solving problems within their classroom are going to be something that can really improve instructional practices.
So who gets the $1,260?
The teacher
coach?
does.
The teachers that go to the training.
The teachers that if a teacher completes all of the cycles, so if I complete all of my cycles, I get $1,260 with my coach. The coaches are paid, but that's down the line here.
Of course.
Yeah.
It's cool. It's going to be complicated.
Yeah. So then the second piece is the professional
figure it
learning
out.
communities. So all teachers are assigned to a professional learning community, or PLC. They meet with that group of people for 45 minutes weekly or 90 minutes biweekly. They use, the point is to be working with teachers who you work closely with, to work on how can we improve our instruction, what can we do for this specific group of students. And this represents 30% of the ACOMP augmentation, which is $630. So all teachers who choose to participate and attend their PLC meetings receive the $630. The third component is the site level goal. So in August, there's a continuous improvement retreat, and there's a goal set. And if your team or if your building meets that goal, so if Forest View were to meet their goal for this year, usually this is based on MCA data. It's always based on MCA data unless it's early childhood. Then in like September, when MCA results are released finally, then that building, everybody there would receive that $210 of compensation. So the total possible augmentation for participants is $2,100.
Is participation voluntary?
It is.
It is, okay.
But if they get the whole school building, then everybody gets it, whether they were in the program or not?
If you choose not to participate in
Then you don't get
ACOMP,
it.
you do not get it.
Got it.
And this is primarily paid for out of the learning and development bucket?
This is paid for out of a combination. When you approve the agreement, you're actually approving a local levy that is also tied to funding that comes specifically from MDE. So it's not district staff development dollars. It's different categorical. You said complicated. And it
Of
is.
course.
I agree with you on this one. This is money that comes from the state and by your approval, a local levy as well.
I have a slide coming up too that might explain it too.
And do you have a slide that tells the percentage of staff that participate? Or-
We're at 99%.
Are you?
It's very, very low.
Okay.
The number that don't participate. It's tied pretty closely with the teacher development and evaluation plan as well. So it doesn't do people a lot of.
There are two components there. One is participation in PLCs. You really have one of two choices. You can either attend and get paid or attend and not get paid, because it's a structure that we believe in. This is what we do administratively. So it's in your interest to obviously attend and get paid for participation in that. In terms of the other half of that, which just escaped my mind, prompt me.
TD&E.
Oh, TD&E. The observation cycles that are here in the mentoring is intended to be the dress rehearsal for the observations when your administrator comes in. So it's the formative assessments that you do and the practice you do so that when your administrator comes to evaluate you, you're ready for it. You know what to do.
All right, the fourth and final piece is the career ladder position. So when we think about, we've got some people who are teacher leaders who are training other teachers. So we have a PLC leader trainer, we have peer coach trainers, we have a cultural competency and implicit bias trainers. Those are the folks who have kind of a training position, and then there's some other roles like the peer coaching and mentors and lit coaches. We have 137 coaches / mentors in our district. So that's a pretty good number.
Is that one per 8 teachers then? Is that probably close? One for 10, Tim?
4.
We try to keep it under 5.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
475-ish teachers.
Is that what there is for education? 1,200 employees total. I'll have this down by next year, I promise.
It'll change, don't worry.
Our curriculum leaders are folks who work on the curriculum, so they're gonna, with their team, facilitate that process of working on curriculum when we have time for that, or when that's built into our days. And then we also have some PLC leaders, so those groups that are meeting weekly, those leaders, those meetings are facilitated by a trained leader. So all of these folks receive training and then a stipend on top of the $1,260 that they would get for participating and doing their own peer coaching and those pieces. So
So are the leaders actually educators, teachers, whatever you want?
yeah, they're just, yeah,
They're just doing this on the side?
Yeah.
yeah. Oftentimes in their own time or
Yeah.
during the
We
day.
timesheet for any work that we ask them to do. Some do not claim the timesheet.
Oh, cool. What are the curriculum leaders?
So the
They help write the curriculum?
They do. So when we're constantly in process of revising the work. I mean, the state will update maybe once every 10 years, but we're always working on units and trying to make things better than they were before. So they lead that work with their teams. They get some extra training and have some extra meetings throughout the year. They meet 4 times a year. And then they'll get an agenda and maybe think about what it is that their group wants to work on and then make a plan for how to implement that plan with their group. So oftentimes teachers will know what assessments maybe need some beefing up or what units aren't working as well as they should, and they have time to work on those things.
Frequently, these are the teachers you see coming before the district advisory committee to present curriculum that they've developed. So when DAC does the approval to recommend curriculum to you, that's the teacher leaders who facilitated that process with the teaching and learning department, developed it, DAC reviews it, makes a recommendation to you, and then you make the final decision, and you'll have 2 chances to next week.
Where do they go for the Danielson training? Who teaches that?
We do it in-house ourselves.
Is it just like a video thing or like a?
The initial training is 3 days, 18 hours.
I see that.
With one of our teachers who's been doing it for a while. And then we have, after you've done that initially, it's a 2-hour refresher every summer that teachers have to take.
What is it? What is Danielson training?
So Charlotte Danielson is one of the leaders in education, and she has a rubric that she's used and adapted to different areas. So there's like a general education version and a special ed version, and
You guys just
pulling
like
it
her.
up, Tim. What's that?
She's the one you picked. I'm sure there's other trainers out there. It's just
There-
the one that you guys use.
Yeah.
Got it.
The 2 most common are Charlotte Danielson, the other one's Robert Marzano.
And I've never heard of either one of them, so I don't know why I'm asking.
If you want books, I can give you.
I don't want any books.
The next slide is about how ACOMP is funded. So ACOMP is funded, it's approved for $260 per student. So our funding changes as our enrollment changes. So we get $169 in state aid and then $91 per student in board-approved levy each year. What that supports is the teacher stipends, so for participation and then also for those leadership stipends and some of that hourly pay. The leadership training for teachers, so all of our peer coaches and mentors, like I said, PLC leaders, curriculum leaders, and all of our trainers attend training and have been trained and will be trained this summer again. Salaries, so it does support salaries for our elementary staff development and curriculum specialist, our literacy and social studies coordinator, and also our ACOMP coordinator. And then it also supports K through 4 literacy testing at this time. So this is the budget that we're looking at for next year. So our funding, we have some estimated carryover this year that we're going to be bringing into next year. And then our funding, which is based on our October 1 enrollment from this past year, is $1,624,480. So we have $795,953 to work with this year. So you can see how it was allocated over the different areas. You might note too that it is a little bit more than what is in the proposed budget, but oftentimes we allocate or we'll plan for more in some areas than in, to give ourselves a little bit of breathing room. So we're pretty generous sometimes with how we allocate in certain areas. So we're within 5%, which is supposed to be okay.
181 pays 171,000 and the state gives us $1.6 million. Is that right?
Nope.
Huh?
Isn't
No.
that the carryover funding?
That's
from
the
previous year?
carryover. That's the carryover. So we've been carrying a balance for the last couple of years.
That's nice.
It's dwindling for other reasons, like costs going up.
What's the estimated revenue? I guess I'm confused.
That's the carryover that we're talking
Oh,
about.
that's the carryover.
Yeah.
And then the funding, the $1.6 million
We
is
think
the state and
Next October, it will
both of
be
us.
around 1,624,000. We won't know until October 1, but that's our best guess, working with the business office. We've saved 171 out of current expenses.
You're good to go for next year, but we got to.
We're probably, yeah, we're good to go for next year, we believe. All budgets are a function of assumptions, and assumptions can change.
So our recommendations heading into next year is really for professional learning for leaders and staff on how to leverage ACOMP structures for the multi-tiered systems of support, MTSS. That's something that our district's been working on. And this is the first layer of that work in those professional learning communities and teachers working with teachers. We're going to continue developing instructional practices, meeting the needs of most students within the general education classroom, and then provide structures and tools for constructive discussions around data and instructional practices. Any other questions?
Don't be looking at me, I'm done asking questions.
How many years has the district participated in ACOMP?
Since 2006 and 7, so.
So I take it you guys think there's good results with it? Like we're seeing it, we're seeing like good results, like it makes sense?
The plan makes sense. I do think there's some opportunities to tweak some pieces, particularly in the peer coaching model and in the PLC model, around being more specific, more targeted in the conversations and the work that they do. That's why you see the MTSS work that we're bringing forward. Our intent there is that we're going to give the PLCs more resources and learning on how do you look at student and performance data, and how do you make adjustments in instructional practice based on that data. It's always been the intent. It's always been something we've been growing at since we started. And now we believe that we've got better resources to do.
Well, hop to it.
Mr. Chair.
Director Ward.
Peer coaching, all of that is very, very important. We know that, understand that, and it transfers into our students' lives as well, in students' class, in the educators' classrooms. I'm interested in asking about mentorships and ACOMP. Tell me about, can you share with that a little bit more about?
Yeah.
Because I remember back when we had a huge mentorship program, and I'm not sure that it's, how's it going? I don't think we have the same capability that we had back then. And I think that has, in my opinion, has played a huge factor in retention and recruiting.
That's possible. It's expensive. So that is definitely a factor. We have a mentorship program, so all new hires receive a mentor. It is, if they've been tenured in another district before, they have 1 year of mentoring, and then they go right into the peer coaching. If they have not been tenured in any district in Minnesota before, then they receive 2 years of mentoring, and then they go into the peer coaching model. We try really hard to match them up with somebody who is in their building and or doing something very similar to what they do, so that, you know, if I'm a special ed teacher teaching emotional behavior disorder students, then I would want to make sure that I got paired with somebody who had a same or similar job and knew what that was really like and could help me along the way with that. So that's most of it. There are 2 trainings that take place in the first year. There's one training that everybody attends, the new teacher training in October. In August, it's really busy, and I think a lot of new hires kind of, you know, there's just so much new and they're getting ready for their classrooms. So we get them together in October for a day and do a little bit more training on some of the ACOMP things that they need to do. And last year we were able to provide an opportunity for them to meet with, you know, so they met with some of the other teachers on special assignment who maybe work with literacy or elementary math, or we had someone who was there to talk about behavior. some of the different areas that might possibly be things that would impact them. And after a month, they might have a better idea of things that they needed. And then there's a second training in their second year. So if they're a year B teacher, that takes place in February, and that's the cultural competency and implicit bias training.
Mr. Chair? Let me ask it a different way. Is there room in the ACOMP budget to start investing more dollars towards a mentorship, towards more mentors in the district?
We would have to make a plan change.
Would you look at that, please?
We can. I just ask that people remember that the agreement of the plan is a negotiated settlement between the three groups, the EMB, MDE, and the school board. So every stakeholder is going to have a little slightly different take on that. The way the budget is structured at the moment, we would have to redirect budget elements from one area to another. There's not enough there. 171 is carryover. Looks like a lot, but in the $1.7 million budget, it's not. Okay, you may not make major structural change there. Certainly, we're open to any conversation about improving the experience new teachers have, because retention of new teachers is extremely important.
So is this mainly for new teachers? Is this kind of what this main
mentoring
function
piece.
is? Just the mentoring?
Just the mentoring. The four, there used to be 5 pillars to this program. The 4 pillars are designed to be comprehensive all across the board for teachers at every level of their career. You have peer coaches, which is intended to tap the expertise of veteran teachers for teachers who might be either early in their career or mid-career or late in career but need some help. Okay? The career ladder positions are the opportunity to retain high-quality veteran staff who may wish to remain in the district but not pursue administrative roles, so they get the opportunity to demonstrate leadership competencies beyond what a regular classroom teacher might be able to show. So it kind of keeps the job fresh. That was the intent. Case in point would be Ms. Cooper. She would be falling into that category.
But the plan we're looking at tonight is for the next school year. And so this goes from us, and it goes to Education Minnesota.
It already went to Education Minnesota Brainerd, and then so it'll go to the state next.
Okay.
Yeah.
So any kind of adjustments we'd want to make to this that are of that kind of substance would be for next year?
Yes.
There are deadlines in the calendar for submission to all of that get communicated out.
And I'm assuming Ed Minnesota was supportive of, or Ed Minnesota Brainerd was supportive of the plan?
Yes. They notified us of their support.
Okay, great.
Mr. Chair, I'll move approval of the resolution for the ACOMP program for next year.
I'll second.
Thank you.
We have a motion from Director Ward with a second by Director Brecken to approve the resolution. Any further discussion? Hearing none, this is a resolution, therefore a roll call vote.
Michelle Brecken,
Yes.
BJ Donlin,
Yes.
Sarah Spear,
Yes.
John Ward,
Yes.
Kevin Boyle,
Yes.
all present are in favor.
Thank you, Beth.
Thank you.
Thanks, nice job.
Do you want me to stay for?
Our next presentation is World's Best Workforce, Read Well by Third Grade.
I get to be Sideshow Bob a lot tonight.
They wore red suspenders.
I don't own reds. I have every other color.
Okay.
Ms. DeBooth will be talking about local literacy.
All right, good evening. My name is Taylor Demuth. I'm the Elementary Literacy and Social Studies Coordinator. Tonight, I will be presenting our local literacy plan, Read Well by Grade 3 data, dyslexia data, as well as an overview of our elementary literacy structures, and an update on the work we are currently completing at the elementary level within literacy. So to get us started, Read Well by Grade 3, that is part of the Minnesota state statute that requires districts to submit proficiency data for all students grades K through kindergarten through second grade with the goal of having all students reading at or above grade level by the end of grade 3. So the data submission includes our local literacy plan, district reading proficiency data, and district's dyslexia screening data that I will share with you this evening as well. Okay. The elements of our local literacy plan are outlined here on this slide. I've attached the local literacy plan at the bottom of this that will give you a more comprehensive view of all the things that are present within that literacy plan. The next piece we'll look at is within Read Well by Grade 3, the data that we use for that. These are the subtests that we have. We have letter identification, concepts about print, hearing and recording sounds and words, benchmark assessment system, which is our text leveling data, and then our star reading data, which is given for students in grades 2 through 4. The next piece is the dyslexia screening data, and that is each of the assessments that are given specifically align with the different indicators of dyslexia, which I will go through on the following slides. And the assessments are listed here as well. Okay. So then moving into the indicators of dyslexia. So as I stated, we have assessments that are tied to each of the indicators. In addition to that, and I'll get to that later in my presentation, we have, for children that are identified with specific indicators that are present, we have specific interventions that we can do to support them. Multiple tiers, it's a multi-tiered support of supports in place where we move from tier 1 to tier 2 and tier 3, using these indicators to help us know exactly what they are needing. So for example, the first one is poor phonemic awareness. That understanding and ability to hear individual sounds and words and identify individual sounds. We have an assessment that aligns with this, as well as progress monitoring and interventions as well. The next piece is the decoding. Decoding is that letter-sound relationship that translates a word from symbols to a unit of meaning. Poor encoding, that's our spelling. That can be another component that can be difficult for children with dyslexia, and also students that have other reading difficulties as well. All of these indicators can be present. Poor orthographic recall or memory, that's that when you think of orthographic awareness, that's the knowledge of visual features of written language. So those features of a letter, spelling patterns in a word, that can be very difficult. And just remembering that certain specific order and helping them to read. Again, that's something that if we identify in the assessments, we can help to intervene. So the next piece that moves us into first I'll go through our Read Well by Grade 3 data, and then I will move into our dyslexia screening data. So before I get into the data, I think it's really important. I've been in this role, this is my 3rd year. We've lived a lot with the pandemic, with all of the things that have come. I think the first thing that I want to start within my presentation is just the importance of noting that our students, when I look at, I'm giving you an end data point, I'm giving you a May data point, and I'm in the classrooms weekly. I have the opportunity to be in all of our elementary buildings, and there is no doubt in my mind that we have the best teachers in front of our students. As we all know, we've experienced the pandemic. It's presented challenges. We've all experienced them, and we've had to continue to respond to them. And when I think about our teachers and I think about what they do day in and day out, they continue to rise to the occasion to meet our children's needs, not only academically, but also behaviorally and emotionally. And I think that's really, really important when we look at these numbers. So to get into the Read Well data, the first piece we'll look at is letter identification. This is an assessment we give in kindergarten. Typically, it's on a diminished scale. As kids master it, we're able to move on. We have a district proficiency rate of 97%. It's really important to note with that as well. As I look at the data we moved from a 91 to 92% proficiency rate from 20 to 21 and 21 to 22 to now a 97% proficiency rate, which is substantial. The next piece of data is the concepts about print. We give this is a kindergarten assessment, and we have 92% proficiency as well. This, when I looked at the data over time, we've moved from an 84 to 85% proficiency rate to a 92%. And when I think about looking at literacy data over time, these are early literacy assessments, which are indicative of building effective readers and writers over time with continued quality instruction. So I think when I look at the data we saw versus the data we see today, we are making up ground from what may have been learning loss over the pandemic. The next piece of data is hearing, recording sounds and words. This is a first grade assessment, and we had 88% proficiency as well. The next one is the text leveling data, and this is K4. So our kindergarten data is 73%. First grade is 61%. It's important to note with that first grade cohort, they're a large cohort because many of them did not go to kindergarten the year that they were slated to go with the pandemic. Also, many of these children did not have preschool experiences, and we're noticing that in our initial early, when we look at the September, the November data, it's showing they're growing. It's just a slightly different cohort that we need to take note of as we adjust instruction moving forward. Second grade, we had a 73% district total. Third grade was 65%, and fourth grade was 69%. The next piece that I'll share with you is the dyslexia screening data. It's important to note, so we screen all children for dyslexia. Students that are identified with characteristics of dyslexia are the students that have not passed 3 out of the 6 diagnostic assessments. So it's really important to note, though, that although they may have characteristics of dyslexia, we do not diagnose dyslexia as it's a medical diagnosis. Also, there are other developmental factors that could be causing these characteristics to present themselves. But nevertheless, we look at the data and we use that data to help us specifically respond based upon the data, based upon those indicators that I already shared with you, to directly target the instruction to the students' individual areas of need. And this is outlined in the local literacy plan, section 8, the dyslexia interventions. And all children, regardless of a diagnosis of dyslexia, if they show indicators of need, will receive those interventions. So our dyslexia screening totals for this year are kindergarten, we had 23% of students identified with characteristics of dyslexia. First grade was 27%. Second grade was 16%, third grade was 14%, and fourth grade was 5%. And when you see a decrease like that, what we're observing over time is that the early assessments that we're giving, the students are mastering and are growing and learning. Do we have work to do? Absolutely. But again, this data helps guide our instruction and helps us to, again, in a systemic way, move forward and go, okay, within my classroom, this is what the data shows. Here are the interventions that are approved. Here are the forms for progress monitoring, and if-then statements with Tier 1 supports, Tier 2, and Tier 3. So for example, if a child is struggling with phonemic awareness, we look at tailoring that instruction specifically to their needs within those concepts. So is it a rhyming issue? Is it syllables? Is it onset and rhyme? Is it substituting sounds, blending individual sounds, or segmenting sounds? And then giving them those additional learning opportunities within Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 if needed.
So each of those individual markers, if you will, right, when you add them together, increase the possibility that you have dyslexia. But what you're saying is the intervention methods, I'm just trying to get my head around it. The intervention methods, when somebody's not truly dyslexic, are improving their performance in that particular area, which is why the numbers are going down? Okay, just want to make sure I was tracking that.
I would say that one of the components of our curriculum that we've been successful, because you're seeing that in this data, is the amount of phonemic awareness instruction that does occur in the early grade levels. We're relatively rich in that. So yes, we have some challenges in our literacy plan. I'm not going to deny that. But dyslexia and the dyslexia identification, is just not one of them. Our scores are quite good there.
Okay.
So when you're identified as dyslexic, do you get the same intervention as even if you're not? So say, for example, a family doesn't take them to get tested, it's the same one, so it's proven to work either way.
Yes, because yes, we would use, and that's one thing too, that when we are looking at the data, it's for all students. Yes, great question. The next piece, kind of to give you a context of what elementary literacy looks like, I wanted to provide you with an overview. We use a multi-text approach to literacy instruction. So when you think about the multi-text approach, it's comprehensive by design. It provides whole group explicit instruction, small group instruction, and individual instruction. And when you think of the big five of literacy, which are common across literacy, as we know, comprehension, vocabulary, fluency, phonemic awareness, and phonics, it incorporates all of those as well. The context of reading and writing allow the teacher to vary the level of support based upon student control. It's very driven by student data. When I think about my 10 plus years in a second grade classroom, I was constantly moving between the different contexts of reading and writing to adjust that instruction based upon their needs. I think that's, when I look at the teacher role, as noted on here, is really to support that teaching a child to read. We're building that, helping to support and build that system of strategic actions, that ability, that in the head thinking that has to occur for me to think about books, talk about books, decode, have all of those pieces come together. So giving children numerous, very pragmatic, strategic opportunities throughout the day to engage in that high quality comprehension conversation, as well as individual support at their level. I have my next slide kind of outlines that a little bit more for you, but just really, when I think about what I want for all of our readers, it's developing that inquiry stance, that ability to think critically and deeply about what they read. And that within this multi-text approach, it allows us to do that. It's not easy. It's difficult work, but it's very important work. And when I think about the kids that I have taught, my own kids coming in a few years, this is what I would want for them. So when I think about just that ongoing opportunity for them to develop their identity as a reader, that is what this approach will do and does. So when you look at kind of that overview of the instructional context for reading, we've got interactive read aloud, shared reading, guided reading, independent reading. There's varying levels of student control and teacher support. And as a teacher of reading, I move in and out of each of those throughout every day. And really what you need all components to have that comprehensive approach. I have that explicit instruction, but then I use that individual, that student data to help me within guided reading, within shared reading, because we know the effect size of those different, when I think of Hattie's research, like the shared reading, the repeated rereads, that effect size is very important and very relevant to what we're doing. And I think when I think of reading and writing and how they overlap and the interconnectedness of them, we need all of the context to provide.
I want to make sure this doesn't sound like a loaded question. Yeah. Because it's not meant to be. But as you can imagine, pretty much everybody on this board has been doing a lot of reading up on this subject, right? Because we have Minnesota legislation that was passed at the state level that's going to fundamentally change a little bit of the dynamics about how this works. So as usual, there are some acronyms floating around. I think the one that I see is CUES.
Do you see that?
How does that overlay on what you're presenting to us right now? Can you explain the context of it within the model that you showed us on the previous slides? Or does it relate or not relate? Am I like out in left field?
No.
No, you're not.
No.
I'm trying to understand how they play together, so when I'm reading, I can understand how to translate it, what we do versus what the stuff I see in the articles and white papers that I'm reading.
So when I think of the queuing system, it is one way of organizing information and of organizing what a reader is doing. When I think about what we currently do, when I look at the guided reading groups that I have worked with as a second grade teacher and a fourth grade teacher, I used my individual data to plan based upon, okay, this is what, as they were reading, this is what I noticed them doing as I was having a comprehension conversation, taking anecdotal notes as well. So it's the running records as well as the anecdotal notes. The queuing system is a specific way that you could go about that, but we don't necessarily say that you have to do that.
Okay. Can we back up a slide for a second?
We don't train on queuing.
No.
Because it's one of those things where some of the criticism of it is legitimate if you're not doing it well. You're not asking a kid to guess the meaning of a word just by a first letter. If that's the practice you're doing, you're going to have a problem. There's supposed to be more into it then, but if you have not mastered that skill, you're going to run into that problem. It becomes an efficacy or a competency element of instruction. Fair?
Again, just from a contextual understanding perspective,
And
right?
that was
I'm trying to
specifically
get-
laid out in the READ Act, so I understand why you brought it
So if
up.
we go down to the fourth bullet point, the teacher's role to support the development of each child's system of strategic actions, right? So as a layman, my interpretation of that is that however, whatever label we give that from a systemic perspective, we're putting a lot into the teacher's hands in terms of interpretive observation of how the students are reacting to what's going on. Versus some of what we're being told is being changed out there, where it is much more, for lack of a better word, rigid and prescribed. And do I have that right or wrong in my head, or how can you help me understand that a little better?
You got it?
Yep. So when I think about
I want to follow up, but I'm going to give her a first chance.
when I think about the literacy assessments that we have currently in place, they're very, they're normed. They are grounded in decades of research, and when I think about the big five of literacy, they address all of them. So those aren't, that teacher observation piece, yes, it's important, and it's part of the process, but we lean very heavily on the data that we have. It guides our instruction on a daily basis, and and I'll get into this later as well, but we meet 3 times a year as within each building to look at that literacy data, to make plan adjustments specific to what we're seeing on those assessments. So that is a component of it, but it is not the primary source, if that makes.
No, that's fine, thank you.
Yeah.
So are you making changes because of the new READ Act or not?
I'm
not real impressed with, and I'm not trying to be pick on you, but facts are facts, and I got your MCAs that you put on the website, and it's a bummer, and I see COVID did knock them down. But we were still in the 60s, so to me, it doesn't seem like a very high number. And Minnesota, in general, nationwide, is tanking. So, I mean, do we give spelling tests? Third graders? Do they do spelling tests anymore, or is that just ancient, old-fashioned stuff?
Sometimes.
Do we have tests anymore?
Oh, yeah. I think there are a couple questions on the table. Your question about the READ Act, there's going to be some guidance that we have to wait from MDE on terms of what constitutes approved screeners, what constitutes approved curriculum that we can choose from. They haven't published that yet. So we have some waiting we have to do. And there is a timetable into the READ Act relative to the 24-25 school year and 26-27 school year.
So this isn't going to count for next year?
No, we're probably not going to make any major changes next year, but that doesn't mean we can't work towards them, and lay that out. And this is work that the curriculum leaders are doing. I think one of the things you will bring forward later in the presentation is the word study work that the current leaders and the lit coaches are doing right now for the reason that we've identified that there's some holes in what we do in phonics, and we need more phonics work on. The resource we have for that. The other thing I would offer for consideration is the issue of the curriculum that we use comes down to one of fidelity. Coming back to a point you were asking about the direct instruction pieces and how much power you're really putting in the hands of the teacher or pressure you're putting in the hands of the teacher. We'll flip that around. If you're doing lots of whole group instruction, you run the risk of, if that's not done very well, that you're teaching to the middle. Okay. Again, the element of fidelity and efficacy will play out in whatever gets chosen. So I encourage us to take a step back and come back to our data, which is what you're asking us to do, and look at where we need to grow. And we know that phonics is one of them. We know that we have to wait for MDE to give us some guidance on a few other pieces. I would also point out that there are some key pieces here that used to exist and are gone. Because I believe you've heard this from your conversations with staff. The K-2 education assistants are gone. They're not in the classrooms the way they were years ago. Reading recovery is a primary intervention that we used to provide for any first grader who was not at grade level, is gone.
So are parents doing that? Are parents doing that? My wife used to do that in Nisswa. She'd go in and read with Reading Recovery once or twice a week.
There are parent volunteers who help out, but our systemic structures that we had, we've lost the funding for. That was Title II Part A funding.
So do we still have it though, Tim?
No. Okay. Reading Recovery is gone. We still have the person. She's now one of the LINC coaches, but the person who trained really the state of Minnesota on Reading Recovery, and this person, she's still with us. So we've lost that. The reductions in Title I Part A funding, Title IV and Title II Part A, those were all things that address the staff development in terms of improving literacy, supporting teachers in the classroom, and the actual ability to execute interventions at the classroom level. When you think of the Title I Part A interventionists, there are fewer of them now than there were 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago, because we've been cutting away at that year after year after year after year. So there's some structures there that have gone. I can't tell you that changing to a different structure or different system is going to ameliorate that effect. That doesn't mean we shouldn't consider it. It doesn't mean we won't follow the advice of MDE, but it means that we want a comprehensive look at our data and our context in order to do what's best for kids. That's what we're asking for.
Director Ward, weren't you saying that you know, that reading from K through 3 is like your building blocks for your future?
Absolutely.
So I'm not trying to second guess what you guys have done, because I wasn't on the board and I'm not, you know, I can't, it's not your, whatever, I don't know who made these decisions. But did the board decide to get rid of those people in those lower grades? Or did administration decide to get rid of those people in lower grades? I mean, should we get rid of some optional things at higher levels to help out the little kids to get them up to speed? Would that help you would it help them, the product that we're putting out?
I would
Give them
never
a better chance?
recommend taking from Peter to pay Paul.
Well, that's what you said we've been doing, though. We've been getting rid of these
we've been
paras,
chipping away
helpers.
at it. There's only so many things, you know, some of these are categorical funding structures like Title I Part A. There are rules about how you can use that money. And only 4 of our schools are Title I schools, and those are Lowell, Riverside, Harrison, and Garfield. Those schools have lost tutors and tutoring ability because of just reductions in that federal funding. It wasn't a conscious act on an administrator's part or an administrative team's part or even the school board's part to reduce that. That's just less resource came, and there's nothing you can do about it.
So basically what you're telling me is, if I understand you right, is that we lost the funding, so we didn't really have anything to say about it. We can't take out of our general and find a way to replace those people at these critical ages of these young kids and maybe cut something else, or?
I think when we looked at the K-2 paras, it was coming all from general fund. There's no other fund to support it except coming from the general fund. So as budgets dwindled and things, the only thing we have, you know, really in the system to cut is people, and 80% of your budget is people. And so a decision was consciously made at the time by that board and administration is that general, it was $2.1 million. So if you want to put general ed paras back in classrooms, you need to figure out, or we need to move about $2.1 million of our budget to support that. So the question becomes, then where do we reduce? So what we've tried our hardest is to protect the teachers in front of the students in the classroom. You've seen a huge shift from paraeducator support go from general education to special education because there's funding that comes back to help support that support. So it has been dwindled down. It is. It's like you're triaging what's the most important. And the district has made the decision that they want to keep teachers in front of kids. You know, if you look at the comprehensive program in the high school, there's a rich course electives, there's career pathways. So again, you're looking system-wide. So that was one of the decisions, is to pull that support away.
I want to make sure people understand that in no way am I criticizing the decisions any of my predecessors made.
No,
They
I'm
did
not either.
Exactly what we're doing right here. They're making decisions with the best information that they had at the time.
All right. But now we've got new information and new data, and maybe we should start tweaking to try to fix what you're working hard on, apparently. Well, anyways, continue on. Thank you for answering our questions, or at least mine.
All right.
Yeah, I'm sorry for the sidebar, but I thought
Oh,
it was
no, that's
important to
okay.
get some
Feel free.
context. And
Yep.
I mean, the whole point of these questions, at least from my perspective, and I feel that the spirit of everybody that's asking, is we're trying to learn about this. Or trying to learn about it in a 360-degree fashion so that we don't get too far down the rabbit hole you live in, but also not too far down the rabbit hole that the media provides for us.
Right. And we appreciate that.
We've actually welcomed the questioning and the attention. We do.
And then one last quick thing, just so I understand process. MDE, do they have a timeline for any of this, or it's kind of when they get to it?
Yeah, and it's complicated enough that that's a whole nother rabbit hole.
Okay,
And
we
I
don't
was
have to go all the way
told
down there, but it's basically they have to tear apart the legislation, interpret it, and
Yeah, that's what we call
distill it into.
rulemaking. They've been given their guidance. They now have to digest it and give us their guidance.
There's some facets we have to have in place in the fall with the screener and
Yeah,
that's
no,
going
and
forward.
to translate it to the world I know, it's legislation gets passed and the Treasury Department and Department of Labor have to figure out how to turn it into actual regs.
Bingo. But we're doing it now.
So I talked through the instructional context within reading. The same is true within writing. So this is just kind of an overview, high teacher support versus low student control. Moving through when you think of any particular concept that you are trying to help your writers in your classroom to be able to do, you need to be able to oscillate between those different contexts of support. Okay. The next piece I'm going to talk briefly about is just the supports we currently have. We've talked a little bit about that already, but the supports we have at the elementary level right now, we have literacy coaches. We have one at each elementary building. These coaches are highly trained. We have worked together. We work together throughout each, we meet monthly, as well as on an ongoing basis. To help us define what is our professional development needs within our district, as well as that individual coaching that needs to occur within the building. So that's specific to the teachers in front of them so that they can, the PD, professional development is kind of that systemic approach, and then the individual coaching is how we come in and support specific to, okay, what is that teacher's unique strengths and what might their next shift be to help better support their learners. Additional pieces that we have in place, we do team meetings, as I referenced before. That's 3 times a year at all of the elementary buildings where we look at all of the literacy data with the literacy coach, the principal, and the grade level teachers, special ed teachers as well, interventionists if they have them. We meet, we look at the data, and we make adjustments to instruction. We also have elementary literacy meetings. That's a meeting where I meet Mr. Murtha, myself, all of the elementary building principals, and the literacy coaches. We meet to plan, really continue that visionary work of moving forward together, looking at what is our current data showing us and how are we going to move forward together. One of the pieces that we've found is that post-pandemic, we have noticed that the context of reading and writing that I just referenced, we really want to get back to being grounded in those and thinking about, okay, what specifically is the rationale, the purpose, and how are we using that to engage in high quality instruction? And many of our teachers are already effectively doing that, but it's just lifting that level of rigor, going, what can exit the system now that we've made it through the pandemic? What do we need to do to help respond to the data and the students in front of us? The other piece of that work, that brings us to my next slide, that is our word study. That is an area that over the past multiple years, we have been looking at our word study data as a piece that is something that we want to refine. When I think about word study, though, I put this graphic in front of you because it's really important that we think about all of these characteristics and these concepts. Phonics, a very important part of it, as well as vocab and word structure. And all of these things work together to help develop effective readers and writers. So what we have been doing currently, so this is a group of the literacy coaches, myself, as well as a curriculum leader from each of the grade levels, kindergarten through 4th grade. So we have identified word study. We recognize that we needed a more comprehensive whole group explicit lesson structure, scope and sequence structure. So what we've done is we I've kind of outlined our completed work, our current work, and then our future work. So our completed work, we first surveyed all teachers, K-4. We created an inventory of all K-4 word study resources that we use, as well as all the word study lessons that we're currently teaching whole group. We grounded our ongoing work in the new Minnesota ELA standards and created a scope of concepts that need to be taught across the grade levels K-4, referencing that slide that I just showed you, thinking about all of those areas of word study. And then our current work is, and I just met with our group this past week, we solidified a cohesive plan for K-4 whole group word study lessons using the resources we currently have. And now, this is something to get us through for now. We have many high-quality resources. We have found, though, that we need to make it a little bit more manageable for teachers, and so that we can really be specific and target the needs of our students. So we have a cohesive plan to roll out in August so that we can use, again, using the resources we have. But as part of that continued curriculum review process, we will move forward with creating a word study curriculum adoption rubric to continue the cycle, vet some word study resources against that rubric, and then bring our recommendation forward for purchase. Any questions on that before I move on? Okay. And I guess the final thing that I know this was a lot. I keep trying every year. I try to shorten it because I didn't want to read you the whole local literacy plan today. I figured to save you time. But my biggest hope is when I think about the media and I think about all of the things that are coming at all of us, the biggest thing that I see is a group of people that love and care about the kids at ISD 181. And I think about, if we can move forward together anytime we're considering any type of systemic decisions, I hope that we can, again, continue this conversation possibly in a smaller setting, looking at a curriculum school board meeting, looking at our specific data, looking at what is currently working within our system and what might we want to continue to refine so that we can ultimately have the best outcome for our kids. Because I really, when I look at what we're currently doing, I really believe in the opportunities we're providing our kids while continuing to adjust and respond, because that obligation to meet the individual needs of each child is worth the time that we're investing in the structures that we have. So, any questions?
Mr. Chair. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Mine was
I'll
just
be
a
lengthy.
comment.
Go
Oh,
ahead.
okay. Mine is just a comment, not a question, but I appreciate your expertise. And I think when you're talking about this one component of word study that is all of these things and what it takes to implement that and train on that and bring that forward for the students, and I think of like a wholesale change out of a program, it makes me really nervous. So I appreciate that we're being very systematic about this and bringing everyone along.
Thank you. Thanks.
Director Ward?
Thank you. I agree with what Director Spear just said. I'm less patient. Because Ms. Cooper talked about EBD teacher, and if she had to deal with EBD or whatever, or other, I dealt with EBD for about 20 years out of my 34-year career. And a lot of it stemmed back to reading. And a lot of it stems back to right now in reading. I don't think it's robbing Peter to pay Paul. I think it's more looking at a long-term investment that has a bigger impact fiscally as well as individually. That's with our children. Because our children right now, I think, are struggling with and have struggled. Not the epidemic had something to do with it, there's no question about it, but we've been struggling along the way with literacy. And you know what? It's every literacy coach, I've been in all the buildings as an educator and now as well, and you literacy people are working your tails off, and it's critically important. And now Director Dollinger, I'm at a different place with Representative, so Director
Too many
Dollinger
jobs, John.
pointed out that those are the building blocks, as you well know, and all the literacy people well know. We're going to vote on a resolution tonight to do the same thing next year. I can't do that. I can't do that. You said we need some work on phonics. We need a lot, in my opinion. And I know EBD. I'm not a literacy expert, but I know, I'm pretty sure I know what, direction we need to go. And somebody else referenced the new legislation this year. What are we doing to try to approach the science of reading and the READ Act? What are we going to do next year? And I know that next year, the budget, I know all of that stuff, right? But we got to make some inroads here. We have to make some inroads for our kids because we are still, and it isn't just our district, it's, in my opinion, nationwide. I think everybody would agree with that. So, and I really mean the literacy people are working their tails off and doing everything they should and could or whatever. But I know also there's differences of opinion here. I know within the literacy programs there's difference of opinion. I know within the professional staff there's different. So how can we come up with a solution for our kids going into next year? We can't wait another year, in my opinion, as a board member, because
I agree with them.
those EBD kids need that, and those LD kids, and all children need that.
And so when I think about what I shared with the word study piece.
Yes.
Creating, again, we've identified the barriers. We've identified that the differentiated instruction with the management of it, with the lack of and the diminished support that we have, that's part of what has made it unmanageable. And that is why at this point, with the current resources that we have at our disposal, creating those whole group lessons, identifying, creating, and it's been very comprehensive work over the course of this year. We've looked at and we've outlined a scope and sequence to go, and it was a negotiation going, okay, kindergarten, you're taking this concept. Okay, first grade, to what degree are you teaching this concept? And then plugging in the lessons that we're going to do for that. Now, is it a perfect system? Is it something that I think is going to fix everything magically? No, because there's a training element with it too. And there's an ongoing support, and that's where that coaching comes in. But I think the biggest thing that I would caution us is anytime we make a rash, quick decision, when we've got and I'm the
Taylor,
same. Yeah.
let's face it. This is a government organization. There are no rash, quick decisions. People like me make rash, quick decisions and move and bounce. Yeah. Football coaches make rash, quick decisions. Schools, states, governments, it takes forever. It's like turning around the Titanic. And so I think what we're saying is can you throw us a bone here? Yeah. I hit Mr. Murtha on the literacy coaches. I've talked to some of the elementary teachers that have said we'd be a lot better off with more teachers and not literacy coaches, and he straightened me out because you don't have the funding, I guess. They're funded, are they funded through this ACOMP, QCOMP stuff?
She's funded through ACOMP. The lit coaches come out of district staff development. They do work together as systems. They're linked structures. But again, they're staff dev structures. So there's no money in ACOMP and no money in staff dev that can go into a classroom to work with kids.
I just feel like these kids need an opportunity, and they deserve it. And we've got a lot of money. We spend a lot of money. I'm not saying the school's rich and we have all this dough just coming out of our ears, but for this kind of investment, like Director Ward says, we need to get some results.
You brought that up, Director Ward. In terms of responding to the READ Act, the key components of the READ Act for us, in terms of elementary literacy, deal with, number one, the direct instruction around the 5 elements of literacy, which we do. Okay? It also says, though we're not required to, we're strongly encouraged to have an MTSS structure to ensure that students get the support they need. Tier 1 is core instruction. That's what she's responsible for literacy. So we're building that, and we started that before the READ Act. We started the work on the word study components before the READ Act. We're not the ones late to the table. Okay? We're responding to the data that we have. We are responding as quickly as we can, and you're right. We're not fast at it. It's not easy to pull teachers. It's not easy for us to do some of the things when people have 8-hour work days and their primary job is working with kids. If we want teachers involved in the process and at the table for whatever we create, that will require patience because they have a job already. We talked about what a curriculum leader has to do and how much they do it above and beyond already.
A question for you. Did you put a group of teachers, are we putting a group of teachers together to create the curriculum, or Taylor, did you create the curriculum?
No, we both. She facilitates a process.
Can we just buy curriculums?
Oh.
Not saying we need to.
Rabbit hole of all rabbit holes.
Well, Heidi told me there's 5,000 different ones.
There's more than that. The definition.
Okay, there's 10,000.
Okay.
Can we?
I almost want to table that to Friday. Let me answer that for you then. I'm taking a look at the clock, and I've kept you here far longer than we normally do for a presentation like this. Short version of this is curriculum is a relationship between assessment, instruction, and outcomes. Those are the three things that create a curriculum. It's not stuff. It's not tangible things. That's a 35-year out-of-date idea that was out of date when I was a young teacher. What we want to be doing is making sure that we answer 4 very clear questions. Number one, what do we want a kid to know and be able to do? Question of learning target, question of standard. How will we know that the child knows it and can do it? Question of assessment. Question number 3, what do we do if after instruction the kid still doesn't know it or can't get it? That's intervention. What if we do if before instruction the child already knows it or can do it? That's a question of enrichment. That's it. Those are the 4 elements of a curriculum right there. So ask us to
Not the 35-year-old way of thinking about things, the new way.
right, which
Back when we were doing
25-year-old way.
we were inventing everything and doing the first heart transplants and things like that. The new way. I see. Well, all right. So what are we going to do?
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, John.
Thank you, because I wasn't finished yet. And again, I want to reiterate that everybody, not just literacy people, but everybody's working their tails off to try to help our kids, period. And I've been in all of us in this room have been in education long enough to know that the pendulum swings. This idea, that idea, this, I can't tell you how many times that pendulum swung in my 34 years. And it swung. And there's some good things with the pendulum swing, and there's some bad things with the pendulum swing, okay? But this, I've come to understand that literacy is, I believe, the most important aspect of education that we have. And I used to believe that was FIAD. I used to be with special. In my opinion, literacy is the building block, just like Director Donovan said. So, Taylor, you suggested that as we move towards evaluating and going forward, maybe we do that with small groups. And you suggested, Mr. Murtha, that maybe we table this. Maybe we should table this whole resolution until we can come up with what are we going to do next year? Are we going to do the same thing? Or are we going to do something?
I would say that that's a false dilemma, Director Warder, with all due respect.
Well, you can, but I'm still going to say that.
I know. And I respect your right to do that. And I hope you respect my right to disagree. First of all, we got a July 1st deadline. I
understand.
I can't bring this to you in May because we don't have end of school year data. MDE is responsible for that window. We're not. The next piece to it is the assumption that we're not doing anything is not accurate. We're working on the problem. We're trying to replace our word study structure with teacher input. We're building the MTSS structure, which identifies what interventions. We're changing the screener that we're using. So we're not doing anything. All those are things that are in the READ Act. We just happen to have started them before the READ Act required us to.
The READ Act just made it easier. Not easier. The READ Act just made it easier to get it brought up at a school board meeting.
Yeah.
Because I've been thinking this the whole time. It's the only reason I wanted to be on this deal. It's like, we have got to address this. This is a issue. And, you know, Director Heidman's not here, and he brings it up every single meeting. And it's unfortunate he's not here because I think he'd be pretty interested in this too. So, but once again, the state has, in defense of Mr. Murtha, Director Murtha, whatever I'm supposed to call you, they've gone ahead and they've told us we have to have this in by July 1st. Is that true? And we can't do it until the results are in, which happens after the 1st of June. So this is our only meeting, and you've got us, and here we are.
Well, you're well prepped for our budget discussion later. It's the same thing.
It's just so ridiculous. It's just,
so
it's terrible.
Tim, just a quick thing. You sort of acknowledge that there are some holes in the phonics piece, right? That there's some work to do there. And I think as I listen to everybody else talking about this, where I'm trying to get my head is, are there are there tweaks for 23, 24 in that particular area that would put us on that path, that would make certain members of the board feel more comfortable with approving the resolution, knowing the timetable that we're on?
Fair
Can you
question.
talk to that a
My
little
short
bit?
answer is yes. I'm going to let her amplify because she did reference it briefly in the presentation. It's just part of the
Okay, now
language
before she
salad.
goes anywhere, would that help you, Director Ward, Director Donnellinger, if she goes on and tells us a little bit about what they plan to do before it's compulsory under the READ Act or whatever we have to do, for subsequent school years?
Love to hear it.
I mean, some of this will get covered in the retreat on Friday. This is definitely a line item for discussion on that as well. So we can go, as Tim mentioned, there are several rabbit holes, and that's what the retreat's for, so we don't, suck all the oxygen out of this room tonight.
I know, and it's happening and it sucks, but the deal is that it's just, there's only so many opportunities, it's like, from everything I find out, it's like, these really are important years. And you just hate to waste another one,
No, fair enough,
for
fair enough.
another
So, if you don't
400.
And I
mind-
want to be sensitive to your challenge there, Director Donnellinger. I live in this world, 35 years of it, so I can move through the jungle pretty easily. If you're coming cold to this, I know it looks completely bizarre, and it looks foreign.
Well, I think, again, speaking for myself, what looks horrid is the assessments. Not relative to anything else, but, there shouldn't be anything coming out of a school district with a 6 in front of it as
We all agree on that. We have the same shared goal.
Mr. Chair, can we hear from Taylor on the phonics
yes, sir.
piece?
Okay, no, that's okay. So when I take us back to that process that we're currently engaging in, in order to make an informed recommendation for purchase, we needed to go back and take an inventory of what we currently have to reassess and then redistribute those materials appropriately across the grade levels. So what we did is there was a training component with that group that I worked with, that K4 literacy group, including the literacy coaches. So what we did is we identified where the holes in instruction were. And we went, wow, we don't have a ton within this component. We don't have this. Okay, how are we going to create, anytime you create a scope and sequence, you need all of those people at the table. And that's exactly what we did. So we've identified things that have to leave the system, which was that differentiated word study piece happening during the day other than at guided reading. And now we're directing teachers beginning next school year to start doing the whole group explicit instruction, scope and sequence of lessons for kindergarten, for first grade, for second grade. This will help us to make an informed recommendation when we look at those curricular resources for preview. Because until you look at the scope of what we have and really create a cohesive system for students so that they can take on that learning spiral over time, we wouldn't have been able to make an informed decision for purchase. So I truly believe that this is a step. It's been long, and it's taken me multiple days of full day subs for teachers to get them together, to get our group. And we've got gen ed teachers, we've got special ed teachers, we've got speech language pathologists, we've got all of us in a room together playing an important role. And I know it's been lengthy, but we're making change and we're moving forward.
I appreciate that.
Okay.
I do appreciate that.
Any other questions on that?
We're not picking on you, we just want results.
And I
That's
feel
the way
like
this
from
works.
the context of the board and the board job description, so to speak, we are not literacy experts. I mean, I'm not. You guys might be.
I'm barely literate.
I feel like our job is to say, here's the outcomes we're shooting for. Here's how we're going to prioritize literacy. We think it's really important. You fill in how we get from goal, priority to objective in reaching that success. Because you and your team are going to know that best path forward, and you know what we're trying to accomplish. It's for us to lay out what we're trying to accomplish, and that we are going to prioritize it.
And I appreciate that. And I really, truly appreciate all of the questions and the fact that we can move forward collectively together for our kids. So
Although Director Spear is absolutely correct in what she said, we as the board also are the ones that hear from community, from parents, from those kids that are from the parents of kids that especially that are struggling, that kind of deal,
right.
whatever.
Absolutely. Yep. And we owe it to all of our kids to move forward. We know there are strengths, but there are needs. and we need to respond.
And I guess I think that these opportunities help us feel trusting and the community trusting that you, with your expertise, are really taking a hard look at that.
Yeah, and I'm happy to have more conversations with all of you, so.
But I appreciate all of the information you shared with us.
Thank you.
And your transparency.
Well, you know, it needs to be stated again, the collective experience of this board is not massive. You know, it certainly from a practical perspective outside of the boardroom, we all have different experiences both in and outside of the educational system. But I think one of the things I had to learn early on is that we get upside down on these statutory deadlines. And so here we are with an action item that we pretty much have to take action on. What I would say is as a board, what we can take on ourselves is the commitment that what I will tell you is I would like you in front of us every meeting until now, from now until the beginning of the school year, so we can, each time we can see a little bit of progress on where we're going with what interventions or enhancements we're gonna make. We can talk about them in the retreats as well, but I think, you know, doing them here in the public eye so people can see that we're doing something. We're not just waiting for the MDE clarifications to come down and then, you know, because like Tim said, you're already working on half of it anyway.
Which is
So,
great.
You know, so I think it isn't going to take that much energy to get us all rowing in the same direction, at least nominally, to get us some sort of movement, though we don't waste another year of kids waiting for all of this to come down, right? I think that's what I'm hearing from Directors Ward and Dondelinger for sure.
And I feel like when you look at what's in the plan, and Mr. Murtha mentioned this, we are already doing lots of things that are coming out in this READ Act. And we're ahead of the game in what is going to be asked of us for next year to take on when they sort through this. So I feel good about it. I feel good about what you've laid out in the plan and where you're headed with what's important to addressing the scores that we're seeing. I think it's up to us to say, you know, what will we be happy with? What outcomes do we feel like are appropriate?
Mr. Chair, and I'm sorry for prolonging this, but I feel it's very important. Taylor, I want you to know, and everybody in here, that Superintendent Dr. Hahn and I have talked about this. This actually came up for me at the MSBA conference that's where I realized how important literacy is at the MSBA conference. And there's a lady named Kim Gibbons and Katie Pical that raised my antennas, and I've been communicating with and sharing with Dr. Hahn, you know, and there are concerns from professionals, not even in this district, you know, about not just our literacy program, but literacy programs in the state. And so that's one of the things in the legislation is they're going to evaluate and look at and, you know, literacy programs around the state. So it's not just this old crazy retired teacher thinking this is, you know, what are we doing here? You know, it's all of us are very, I believe, very good on doing research and seeking out and trying to get professional information. So I wanted to share that with you as well.
I won't say anything more, I promise, but I just want you to know.
Evening's young.
What?
Evening's young.
Yeah, okay. I just want you, I just think it's important that you understand that we're paying attention. So we're expecting results. And I don't know if that's really a school thing, but it's in everything else in the world. It's in business, it's in sports, it doesn't make any difference. You're in charge of this. If you think you got the right plan, like Kevin said, I'm not an English teacher, how would I know? But I can read this report that you gave us, and I could see the results, and I'm not very impressed with them. So I appreciate it if you get this fixed. And so would all these little kitties. So get on it, Taylor. Fix this damn thing.
Please challenge me with that. Taylor is a teacher. I'm the director of teaching and learning.
All right, well, then we'll challenge you with it.
It's my responsibility.
All right.
I would entertain a motion to approve the resolution as presented.
I'll make that motion.
And I'll second it.
We have a motion from Director Spear and a second from Director Brecken to approve the resolution for the local literacy plan, World's Best Workforce, Read Well by Third Grade, as presented. Any further questions or discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please. We have a resolution.
DJ Donlayer.
Yes.
Sarah Spear,
Yes.
John Ward,
Yes.
Kevin Boils,
Yes.
Michelle Brecken,
Yes.
all present in favor.
Thank you.
Thank
you
you.
very much.
And it is with deep apologies to all those in attendance. This meeting was designed to be super long by design because we have a time constraint for our July meeting, so we are cramming a ton of stuff in here. We still have budgets and other stuff to talk about, plus a closed session after we kick all of you out. But I am going to recess us for 5 minutes so that people can disperse and use potties and whatnot. So the time now is actually 8:05. Can we be back at 8:12, please? presentations. Next up is the early childhood curriculum, Tani and Brandy. And the
I'm here all
usual,
night.
that guy.
You're here all night. What about us?
You too.
Hi, I am Brandy Wynn, and I coordinate and teach for early childhood, and I will be going through our early childhood curriculum presentation. Here's our early childhood vision statement, and then just a little bit about our early childhood programming. So we have 18 school readiness, integrated BPK, and self-contained classrooms planned for right now for next year. Within those classrooms, we will have around 430 students that will use this curriculum. Within those classrooms, teachers may have 2 to 3 different groups of students. Our programming has options of 2 full days, 4 half days, or 2 half days. We just wanted to acknowledge our curriculum committee members that helped us work on the pilot and the curriculum review. The curriculum we are presenting is Frog Street. This is a comprehensive early childhood curriculum. The state has a list of early childhood curriculums that are approved through Parent Aware, which is an early childhood state rating system for high quality programming. Many of early childhood funding is tied to our 4-star rating. The state requires early childhood programs to use a research-based approved curriculum that aligns with state standards. Frog Street is a curriculum on this list, and we have those under here. Brainerd Early Childhood uses the Brainerd Public Schools Early Childhood Assessment and TS Gold. Both assessments are state approved and required to align with our state standards. These assessments are used across all of our 3 to 5-year-old programs. This is our early childhood indicators of progress. There are state standards. Our standards and benchmarks are prioritized using the early childhood indicators of progress and those identified learning domains. In the blue are the domains. They are required learning domains within the early childhood indicators of progress. The state prioritizes the identified components within each domain as our core standards and benchmarks. Frog Street is aligned with these core standards and benchmarks. Because the ISD 181 assessment and TS Gold assessment are state approved, they are required to assess all of those benchmarks. At the bottom here is an example of our Brainerd ISD 181 assessment. We have begun creating a Frog Street curriculum fidelity schedule for implementation due to the variety of class options to ensure core standards are met across all early childhood classrooms. This will ensure that every classroom is focusing on Frog Street core standards. Frog Street has several focus content areas that align with our early childhood standards. Conscious discipline, which focuses on social emotional, pre-K literacy, mathematics, and science. Here are some examples from our classrooms that piloted this year. These are pictures from some of the classrooms implementing some of the conscious discipline. These skills are built into classroom routines. Everyday morning circle goes through a unite, calm, connect, and commit activities. The students unite through our school family song, calm by practicing and breathing techniques, connect through a pattern activity, and commit to the classroom agreements. So the classroom agreements are over here. Conscious discipline also focuses on community building within and outside the classroom. There's a celebration ritual to celebrate things students have done, helping hands book, some with classroom pictures, a safe space to go and calm down for students, kindness tree that has hearts added to for doing things and having our school family jobs. These are just a few examples within the curriculum. There are special needs adaptations and differentiated instruction throughout the curriculum. State standards and benchmarks are focused for all of our students within programming, and since Frog Street is a state-approved curriculum, that meets our standards and assessments, all students will have access to the curriculum. Frog Street focuses on cultural responsiveness, meeting the needs of a diverse classroom, and teaching strategies for implementing an anti-bias education and cultural responsiveness strategies listed throughout the curriculum. There are language supports, which meet the needs of dual language learners through DLL, ELL strategies that are provided at point of use in the English teacher guide. There are also Spanish family resources included. There are special needs adaptations, lessons to use at point of use throughout the curriculum with focused on visual impairments, hearing impairments, cognitive challenges, delayed motor development, communication disorders, emotional and behavioral challenges, autism spectrum disorder, sensory integration issues, and children at risk for failure. There are also teaching strategies within the Welcome Guide during teacher implementation. All right, I think we're through the presentation. Do you guys have any questions?
Mr. Chair?
Dr. Ward.
I just want to thank Ms. Flowers for having me there to visit and reading to the kids. And if you haven't been to the Early Childhood Center, go there. It is a really great experience. You do great work. And we've been talking a lot about K through 3. But we've got to remember EC is also extremely important. And I think the state is starting to hopefully recognize and understand that as well with some of the investments that they made this year in their legislative session. So, when I thought it was just like, 15 or 20 kids at this place, It's unbelievable what they do there. So thank you for all you do. It's remarkable.
Thanks.
I'm good.
Thank you very much for the presentation.
Yeah, there's something.
All right, so on the docket is the approval of the early childhood curriculum as presented.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Director Dondelinger with a second by Director Ward to approve the early childhood curriculum. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Hey, finally not a resolution. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you very much, Tani.
Thanks.
And Randy. Next up, 9 through 12, health, wellness, and fitness curriculum.
Actually, I'm going to give this one over to Ms. Cooper.
She can handle it.
Better than I can.
That's all right. It's more of slides than a presentation, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you notice how the recess gave so many people like the opportunity to Irish exit on us?
You're presenting it like that?
Yes.
Okay, sounds good. Good evening. I'm Jolene Owen, and I teach health and yoga at the Brainerd High School.
And I'm Mickey White, and I do the same thing.
All right.
Except for I don't teach yoga.
Yet.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, so we are here to talk about our health, wellness, and fitness curriculum. Health, wellness, and fitness is a required course to graduate from Brainerd High School. It's a one-credit course, and then it's also required to be taken before students take any other elective for Phi-Ed. So health, wellness, and fitness is that first course along that line. A majority of the students who do take health, wellness, and fitness are 9th grade students. We do sometimes have sophomores, 10th grade students, once in a while juniors and seniors, which kind of depends on courses that they have taken prior to this. The state of Minnesota does not have standards for health, and so with health, we go by the national standards, which were created by the CDC, Center for Disease Control. And these are the 8 standards right here that we follow. Okay, so looking into some of the topics that we cover within health, wellness, and fitness. This is an example of one of the benchmarks and the learning target for these topics that we cover: mental health, sexual health, physical health, relationships. That's just a little bit of what we cover within our health, wellness, and fitness. Throughout the semester we do, because it is a semester course, throughout the semester we cover 5 units. And this is just kind of just a snippet of what we cover. Next, we're going to show you one of our assessments that we do at the very beginning of the semester. And here's the standard that this assessment covers, along with the learning targets. And with the learning targets, this is what the students at the end of this assessment will be able to do. Do you want to go through the assessment?
Sure. So what the students do is they put together a presentation, essentially, that covered the 8 different components of health. This is an example of one of the slides that they work through. It gives them the definition of emotional wellness, and then just some different examples of it. And then what they end up doing is they'll take or they'll find a couple images that connect them to emotional health or what remind them of emotional health. We give them some suggestions there. And then they continue on and they have to write some journal entries based on topics around, for this specific example would be emotional wellness. And we give them prompts, writing prompts for that as well too.
Do you guys have them do anything on food and exercise?
Yep, and so nutrition is.
Or is it mainly emotional? Is it
Say that again.
Is it like your 8 things, are they all equal, or do we talk about emotional health, and a little bit about taking care of your body, and because, exercise will help your emotional?
No, we work that in. It's all pretty even.
Good deal.
With this assessment too, this is just an example of one of the components of wellness that we cover. They actually cover all 8 within this assessment. And so it is a very lengthy assessment at the very beginning, but we feel it's very important because it is the base of what health and wellness is. And it also just gives them that understanding of what health and wellness is. And then yes, throughout the semester, we do cover nutrition. We cover alcohol, tobacco, other drugs, sexual health. Did I miss one? And nutrition.
And they're in the gym a couple days a week too, right?
Yes, and then we also, what our week looks like is usually a typical week would be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we are in the classroom. Mondays, Fridays, we're in the gym. So we do Phi-Ed with them as well.
That's good for them.
Yeah.
So Mr. Chair, I thought that when the state eliminated their state standards, that was dumb, period. And is there any thought at all about going back to state standards with, I know you heard me say that I thought Phi-Ed was, in health was important before, and it still is, it all is. But is there any discussion at all about, rather than using the national standards, to go back to state standards? Do you know? Would you guys know?
I do not.
The director,
okay.
MDE just hasn't published it, and they don't seem to be interested in publishing it this time.
That's sad. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, since this group is presenting again, I would entertain a motion for the approval of the curriculum as presented.
Motion.
Second.
So we have a motion by Director Donnellinger with a second by Director Brecken. Any further questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. On to yoga. Maybe for the board retreat, we should have.
No.
I do this.
No, so they cut me off before I even got all the way in.
No. I'm not coming.
We're just gonna go like that. Okay, so I currently teach Yoga 1 at the high school. And after looking at our registration numbers in the spring, they went up by a whole class size. And so then I took a look at who had already taken Yoga 1, and with that, I had an interest in creating a Yoga 2 course for students. And so Beth and I had met, and we came up with assessments and also in regards to standards for Yoga 2, creating this course. So with this one, these are the Minnesota standards that we will follow for Yoga 2. Like Health, Wellness, and Fitness, there is a sequence to taking Yoga 1 and Yoga 2. So Health, Wellness, and Fitness is a required course again for graduation. So that would be the first course that they would have to take in order to go on to take yoga, and then Yoga 2. Yoga 1, if they choose, it is an elective. That would be a course that they can take. And then from there, if a student has taken Yoga 1, they can go on to choose to take Yoga 2. This is an example of, or this is the numbers in the past, registration numbers for yoga. You can see that last year our numbers were at about 83, and we're up to 135 that registered for Yoga 1.
What do you suppose the deal is? It was 105, then 92, then 83, and then boom, went up 50 people. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. It was really, really good to see. So after looking at those 135 students, about 27 of them were repeats or had already taken Yoga 1. And so that kind of piqued my interest a little bit of creating a Yoga 2 course. Here we have standards, and the benchmarks that are required for Yoga 1 and for Yoga 2. So what's the difference? What's going to be the difference between Yoga 1 and Yoga 2? Yoga 2 is going to build on the number of challenging poses. So right now for Yoga 1, there's about 10 to 12 basic yoga poses that we cover throughout that semester. And so Yoga 2 will review those, and then we'll go a little above and beyond with those poses. Yoga 2 will build knowledge and skill around previously learned poses, like I previously mentioned, including modifications and extensions. All yoga poses can be modified for any student. And so that is something that, looking into Yoga 2, that I want students to be able to identify and do is modify these poses for themselves, or even extensions to challenge themselves as well. They will need to be able to identify and correct errors in Yoga 1 poses as well. And this is an example, or this is the yoga poses that we cover in Yoga 1. And then going on into Yoga 2, we will get into some more challenging ones as far as strength, flexibility, and balance goes. Here's a rubric regarding Yoga 1 and Yoga 2. And so this rubric is in regards to the pose Downward Dog. And in Yoga 1, they identify how to do this pose. And then they will also, as we go into Yoga 2, it would be required of them to be able to identify and correct common errors within specific poses. And with this one, Downward Dog. And also partnering up and looking at these poses in regards to what modifications might need to be done, or if there are some errors, and identifying those errors. This is another assessment that Beth and I had created. It's a rubric in regards to a specific pose. This is Eagle pose. And again, it's a more advanced pose and something that we will cover in Yoga 2. And if you have anything to add, Beth, because you helped me with these.
Yeah. I mean, it's
that one.
Yeah, I mean, really understanding kind of how to modify and then also how to extend the movements, I think was one of the biggest things we were focusing on in that Yoga 2 class.
Yeah.
So helping them to be more independent in their practice.
Again, another assessment, looking at specific yoga poses and describing that yoga pose. And then again, with a partner, identifying improvements and then also strengths of that pose.
What percent are boys, 1% are girls?
Actually, that has also increased. Specific percentage, I don't know off of hand right now, but if I look back at the classes that I taught last year, I probably had between 2 to 3 boys per class, and I taught 3 sections of it. And we are up to almost 30 boys
That's good for 'em.
registered. Yeah, yeah.
Very core.
And of all levels too. I mean, it's not just athletes, and that's the wonderful thing about yoga is that it's for everybody.
A whole bunch of kids with good balance.
Thank you very much again for another great presentation.
I'll make a motion to approve to adopt the Yoga 2 curriculum as presented.
Second.
All right, we have a motion from Director Spear with a second from Director Ward to approve the Yoga 2 curriculum as presented. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thanks again.
Thank you very much.
Happy Bendina. All right, I guess we're gonna look at some handbooks.
Please tell me we're not going to go through them all.
One
Line by
page at a
line.
time.
Aren't they all the same?
Essentially, yes. Essentially, yes. Okay, I'm asking for you to adopt the handbooks for the 23-24 school year. And there aren't tremendous number of major changes to the handbooks, but there are a couple things to point out. Number one, the 23-24 calendar is approved in July and will be added to each handbook at this time, so the calendar would not be up to date as it's currently written. When the school board approves the student handbook, changes table of contents, any other formatting will get taken care of at that point. When referencing parents, we've also added the slash plus guardians. We've replaced the language around STAR testing, which we no longer do, starting this fall with FastBridge. District 181 ISD has been changed to Brainerd Public Schools. We've added a section on food deliveries as a disciplinary issue at the request of the secondary principals. We have removed the e-learning day language that does not change policy. We're still an approved e-learning district, but we've taken it out of the handbook because we have no intention of doing it as a board action relative to schedule, but we still have the capacity to do it if the board ever wanted to revisit that issue. We've changed language around family collaborative to collaborative service workers, and we've updated language about attendance codes and attendance policy. There are some minor language changes, as always, every single year, and that's it.
Motion. I read one.
I'll second it.
We have a motion from Director Donlinger, exuberant motion, and a second from Director Brecken. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Murtha.
Thank you much.
Next up is Anne Marie with, this was an amended item added to the agenda for the approval of the certification of updated district population estimate as presented.
As presented. Good evening. The Minnesota State Demographer's Office has released the 2022 district population data, and due to population growth, Brainerd Community Education Program now qualifies for an additional $4,092.10 in general community education revenue. This resolution must be passed by the school board by June 30th to adjust our census population.
So it goes up by $2 a person, huh? They went up 4,000?
$4,092.10.
Population went up 1,900 and we got $4,000.
Woohoo, big spenders.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion from Director Donlinger with a second from Director Spear. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry, we have a roll call. Look at
That's right.
pending Chairman Spear with the catch on that one.
Director Spear,
Yes.
John Morris,
Yes.
Kevin Boyle.
Yes.
Michelle Brecken.
Yes.
DJ Donlinger.
Yes.
All present are in favor.
Thank you.
Thanks, Anne. Okay, next up would be the approval of the renewal for the 2023-24 resolution for membership in the Minnesota State High School League as presented. I believe that is Heidi and Jack.
I think Mr. Murtha left his coffee.
Sorry.
was up hanging with the tender twos. It's a long walk down. Alrighty, so in front of you have the Minnesota State High School League school membership resolution. The following prices will be used to estimate our membership costs for the 2023-2024 year. It's $160 per activity. It's $2.25 based on our MSHSL student enrollment. And then each school has a $100 fee to be a member school. So our total for the year is $9,099.50. And these are the same costs as last year. The actual cost will be determined following their August 1 Board of Directors meeting and will be invoiced later on in August. The league anticipates that member schools will receive a significant credit back as they had a really good year financially. The credit back to the member schools is determined by the amount of revenue that the league generates during the year.
How does that generate revenue? State tournament?
State tournaments would be a big revenue generator for the State High School League.
Bless you.
I'll make a motion to approve the renewal.
Second.
All right, we have a motion from Director Spear with a second from Director Ward to approve the renewal of the membership with the Minnesota State High School League as presented. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Got a roll call.
Oh, we're on another resolution, aren't we? Roll call vote. Thank you. I was doing so good for the first 3 hours.
John Ward,
Yes.
Kevin Boyle.
Yes.
Michelle Brecken,
Yes.
BJ Donlinger,
Yes.
Sarah Spear,
Yes.
all present in favor.
I even circled it, but I moved down to MSBA, so that's where I got derailed. Because that one's not a resolution. That one's. No. Okay, so moving onward to MSBA renewal.
Motion.
Second.
Why not?
Any
We're not
comments,
gonna
Heidi?
do it.
We have a motion from Director Donlinger with a second from Director Spear. Pretty straightforward.
It is pretty straightforward.
What are we gonna do? I mean,
All right, hearing no further discussion, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We are renewed with MSBA. Next up is the approval to renew membership with MREA for the 2023-2024 year as presented.
Make a motion.
Second.
Any questions or discussion?
How much is it? I can't see it, I don't have access.
Can you pull up I left my packet there.
Well, I mean, is it?
That cost you some, see it?
I can't see it.
I don't have access.
I don't have access. That's the Rural
Yep,
Association?
Minnesota Rural Education Association.
Yeah.
It is
We're already members.
$2,500.
Perfect.
Same amount as last year.
All right, so to make sure I have that right, was a motion from Director Donlinger?
I think it's Sarah.
Sarah,
Director
second
Spear
by
with a second by Director Ward. Got it. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next up, we're going to talk about milk.
Brainerd Public Schools went out for milk bid this year. We got 3 people back. Cass Clay is now Kemp's for us. We have them currently, and they came in with the overall lowest bid. So that's the recommendation I'm moving for the board. It's getting tighter and tighter to find independent milk delivery. So we're still happy to get 3 people coming back with bids. So
Will
some
all three
districts
paying
get
forward with stuff that comes from cows?
yes, and some districts don't get any bids back. So we're happy to have 3 fairly competitive bids. So
It's nice it's Kemp's too, because they're still Minnesota.
all of these companies are Minnesota companies.
Oh, are they all?
Yes. Yeah.
I know the big guy. Glad you're with Kemp's.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion that we approve the milk bid.
Second.
All right, we have a motion from Director Brecken with a second from Director Donlinger to approve the milk bid as presented. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
We'll get some milk.
Thanks, Alyssa.
Next up is the approval of the resolution for the identified official with authority as presented.
As you know, this is an annual renewal of authority for me to grant access to the Minnesota Department of Education data collection systems. So this is the mechanism by which people are granted the ability to submit their information to the state relative to whatever programming they have, whether it's Sue Anderson's MCA data, whether it's Ms. Flowers' early childhood data. There's all kinds of forms of data that MD collects, and you have to identify who has the right to upload it.
Motion.
Second.
Oh, go. You can-
All right, we have a motion from Director Dondelinger with a second from Director Spear. Any further questions for Director Murtha? Hearing none, and a roll call vote. Circle back.
Kevin Boyle,
Yes.
Michelle Brecken.
Yes.
BJ Donlinger.
Yes.
Sarah Spear,
Yes.
John Ward,
Yes.
all present in favor.
Good, thank you. And remaining in the hot seat, approval of the review of MSBI policies as presented. One amended item from the agenda, we did remove policy 605 from this list for tonight.
Correct, thank you. Policy 510 is just a three-year triannual review. There are no changes to the policy at this time. Policy 601, which is school district curriculum and instructional goals. Only significant change deals with the equitable distribution of teachers and strategies to ensure low-income and minority children are not taught at higher rates than other children by inexperienced or ineffective or out-of-field teachers. So this has to go with hiring practices, assignment practices, and training practices. Policy 602, the only major change in this edition of linking, reviewing the protocol for closing schools to the annual approval of the calendar. This is not an approval of any changes to the calendar for the 23-24 school year. Policy number 603, no substantive changes to policy or district practice. It does emphasize the link between site leadership and CIP teams and the district advisory committee. Policy 604, changes include clarification on making curriculum available for the public or guardians to review. We do this by publishing all curriculum on the district website. It also eliminates language requiring the high school civics test, which has been removed in the READ Act legislation. Policy 605, we have tabled. We've come back to that one. And policy 609, I'm having a little trouble to scroll down. There's no substantive changes to the policy. The change just clarifies that annual notification of the right to opt out of curriculum or to participate in religious activities one afternoon a month or a week on Wednesday afternoons is granted by statute, which is a practice we've always fulfilled. You can approve these as a group. You don't need to pull them out unless there's one you wish to talk about.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion from Director Ward with a second from Director Donnelly to approve policies 510, 601, 602, 603, 604, and 609 as presented. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is the approval of the first reading of MSBA policies as presented. These are 427 and 503.
Specific to policy 427, workload limits for certain special education teachers. This policy actually was mandated back when I was the director of special education and was developed. The school district has been operating under this workload limits for special education teachers policy without formally adopting it. So when Janet went to pull it for review, because it's time to review it, it was found that it was never formally adopted, even though we've been following this process. So what really happens is we're very reliant on working directly with our Paul Bunyan Education Cooperative, and they help us conduct what's called a workload analysis. So taking into account instructional minutes, direct minutes, indirect minutes, number of pupils being served, there's a wide variety of that. So we look to balance that workload. So that's what this policy outlines. And the reason it's a first reading is it's never formally been adopted. So any questions?
So on that one, is there any reason it wouldn't be first and final?
I think since it's first, I'd like to give a chance for people to weigh in if they have any questions.
Okay, so, okay.
Yeah, it was kind of shocked when Janet said, oh, they never adopted it. So.
Is the student attendance the same thing, first reading?
Yes, there's actually, reason being there's some substantial changes, so this will be the first. Reading, we really looked, you're going to see lots of red lines through this policy. So anytime we do a substantial change, we'd like to have it be the reading to give some time for input. Really what we're trying to look at, what's cleaning up is what's an unexcused absence, and clearly articulating that. So when a parent calls in, there's some guidelines of what would be considered unexcused and really wrapping around timelines. So if you look at, I gotta look at the, under excused absence, which is 1, and then 2 is excused absences on page 3. Really looking at 3 or consecutive days when a student's been absent more than 10 days cumulative, asking for a doctor's note or some type of note from a healthcare provider. If a guardian's requesting absences for more than 10 cumulative days for reasons included but not limited to vacation, fishing, hunting. So really looking at, we know when kids miss 10 or more days of school, we start to see a decline in academic achievement. We've really never had parameters. So this policy is looking at clearly defining what's considered excused and unexcused. Those are the substantial changes. On top of that.
Is it okay if I interrupt you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, number 3, doesn't it seem just a little rough that death or a funeral in a student's immediate family, like if your uncle dies, you can't go to the funeral?
What page are you on, Director?
503-2, under B, number 3. You go the 3 consecutive days, 10 days cumulative, then the next one is they scratched out friends or relatives. It's like,
So again, we're looking at cumulative. So anytime.
oh, for 10 days. Gotcha. Okay, done.
That's going to be
Yep,
considered excused.
gotcha.
But we're trying
Sorry.
to hit that. Once you're over 10 days.
I was thinking maybe the fire, flood, and storm thing might count too.
No, for example, we've had, you know.
I get it.
families who pull students for lots of reasons.
That was rough.
So of course, we wouldn't count it. Excused.
It's a good clarification, and I love how it's laid out in the handbook. I think that'll be really good.
It's going to be, that's why it's important to get this policy out and read and make sure our families are reviewing the handbook. A significant amount of work has been done on the backside of this with clerical too. We have lots of codes, and codes are being used differently across buildings, so that's all been streamlined and cleaned up too. They really shrunk, and that's being driven and directed by the policy as well. So you can thank Dr. Candace Burkhart. This is one of the policies she's been working intently on.
Perfect. So can we just approve these together?
This is first reading.
So we don't have to even approve them?
No, we got to approve the first reading.
First reading.
And then we'll bring them back.
Make a motion to approve the first reading for both of these as presented.
I'll second.
We have a motion from Director Spear with a second from Director Brecken to approve policies 427 and 503 at the first reading. Any other further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, now we get to the meat of the meeting.
I think we've already had the meat. It's just a dessert. Get the hell out of here.
See if I stay awake.
All
right. So in your board packet is a very lengthy document on the 23-24 budget. I'm just going to do a very brief overview. We focus on the general fund since it's the majority of the operations. If you guys have questions on any of the other funds, please feel free to ask. The starting point is our first budget revision. So we are at a deficit of about $626,000 in the general fund. And then more detail also I was going to add was presented at the Finance Committee. So we went through this in a great more detail as well if you were wondering. So our revenue assumptions from the starting point of the budget revision was 4% increase. So we did just learn that in May that we got 4% on the formula. We do have a decrease in enrollment of 140 adjusted pupil units. That's our bread and butter is the student counts. There was an increase in compensatory revenue. So we went from 31.6% free and reduced to 45.4%. So that equated to about a $2.8 million increase. The cross-subsidy aid also increased. We are going to get 44% starting next year, and that's an estimated $2.7 million. So those are the big ones in the revenue side. This is just a look at our enrollment projections. So next year, 5,856. That's with 409 in kindergarten. And as of May, we were at 403 with enrollments. So we're tracking very nicely with that. Just wanted to, I know it's been asked, well, where are our kids going? You know, when we talk about our seniors leaving, it's like 530.
Looking at the data for births by county, in 2009, there were 757 births in Crow Wing County. In 2019, the most recent data, there was 638, so 119 less children. And not saying they stay here, but that's just another data point. Expense assumptions, so there are projected increases in salary and benefits and services in the general fund as well as all the other funds. And then there is an addition of, I just wanted to note the net increase of staffing, approximately 5 FTE. 6 of those are the student support specialists that's coming from CARES. So, and then we also have the known replacement savings in there as well. And it's continually changing, right? We could get a resignation tomorrow. That's not in this budget. When we do the budget revision in January, we'll try to capture all those changes. So with all...
Marcy, excuse me.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
When is OPEB done?
So the actuary report I looked at today is through 2071.
71?
And that's projections. I mean, that's...
Oh.
Yeah.
That shocks me.
That's our other post-employment benefits, the, when you retire. Yes. So with all the assumptions in there, we're looking at a excess of around 901,000 in the general fund. In Safe Schools, you'll see there's a deficit of about 133,000, and that includes, with our contract with Reichert, we're going to pay for cameras, that is in there. And then also LTFM has a deficit of about 350,000. And then the LTFM plan will be presented at Finance and the next board meeting, which will detail more of that out. Unassigned fund balance, we talked about this at one of the previous board meetings. The current policy is still at 10%. With the projected balance in unassigned, we'd be at 12.1, so we'd be above that policy. Some things to consider. So we are projected to have an excess, which is great. That's the first time since I've been here. But approximately 2.7 million of staff are currently coded to CARES funds, and that expires September 30th, 2024. So we will need to have a plan before then on what we're gonna do. Also, some other things to consider. There are other unknown increases that we will get in the revision. If there's anything in utilities or contracts to follow, I have everything in there to date, the contracts we have to date. And then also unemployment aid and the related expense that passed, that is not in there. However, it should be a wash. So if we spend X number on the expense, we're supposed to get the rate aid back until it runs out. So once I have an idea of what maybe that looks like, that would be included in the revision as well. The other funds, so food service, we do have free meals next year, so we tried to update that. However, as commented earlier, the state and federal rates come out in July, so that will be in the revision once we know that. And then supply chain funding, we had received that in the last 2 years. We don't know what that number will look like this year. The community service fund, there was an increase in the ABE funds, which was great because we were looking at a decrease. The building construction, just wanted to note it does show a negative, and that's due to a change in the draw schedule. So when we did the revision, they gave us a draw schedule. We actually have drawn less than what was in that schedule. And then they gave us an updated draw schedule, which makes it look like we're going in the negative, but we won't when we close out the year. Debt service, there's debt payments and then a transfer from LTFM. So when we issued the bonds this spring, we had to go back and we have to do a transfer from LTFM to debt service because the levy was already done. So that's incorporated in this budget that you will be approving tonight. The OPEB trust, the only update really is the implicit draw, which is based on the actuarial report. And then the OPEB debt service, the last payment was in 22-23. And I believe that there'll be a levy adjustment just to basically recoup those funds on a future levy. And that was super duper fast, but are there any questions?
I think most of that you covered with Director Donlin and myself in the Finance Committee meeting. The only question I have is then, did I hear correctly, we've ironed out the discrepancies in the ICS draw?
If we are on track with what we've spent so far, yes. Yep.
Okay.
We'll still be monitoring that.
Yeah.
Explain to me where the 140 kids went.
So we had,
I'm not saying you're like the
Yes.
crystal ball and know exactly, but do you think it's mainly kindergarten, is that the deal?
yeah, so 530 seniors are graduating, and we projected about 409 coming in. So that's 100 and, 20
I thought we
some
said
right
that
there.
there was 423 or something when we started this meeting.
Well, you're aggregating. Are you talking about kindergarten? Or are you talking about graduates?
Kindergarten.
Well, I thought that we said that there was 400 and some that graduated.
454.
That went through.
That went through, that's if you look at all components of graduates.
Right.
Yeah, I see people start having some kids here. So these projections that you're giving us out to 2030, you're thinking we're going to lose another 500 kids.
Well, and that is, the enrollment projection model is from Ellers, and every year it gets updated based on our most recent. And the unfortunate part about that is that's factoring the COVID numbers, right? So as we
got
get.
that year.
Yep. So as we get more back into the norm, I don't want to say I'm 100% confident in those.
Okay. That's all I got.
Any other questions? Do you want me to go through everything and then do your motions? Or would you like to do the?
We should probably take this as a single line item.
Okay.
Well, I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
Second.
So we have a motion from Director Donnellinger with a second from Director Spear to approve the preliminary 2023-2024 budget as presented. Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thanks on that one, Marcy.
Yeah.
All right, next up is the fiscal year 24 liability work compensation insurance renewal, which was a really fun conversation in committee.
So we reviewed this at finance. The general liability is an 8% increase, nothing too earth shattering there. And it does include a 4% increase. Director Dondelinger did ask if we looked at the replacement cost of, we have 325 currently. What if we looked at 250? And I did speak to our rep, and he said that the carrier didn't even want to go below 300. In fact, if we did, then they would adjust our rates.
You're talking about district-wide replacement cost for facilities?
Correct.
Because there's no way to target it to specific facilities. You've got a blanket cover the value of the district as a whole.
Correct.
You can't lopsidedly predict that a tornado is going to hit Baxter Elementary, so it's kind of complicated how it works. And then, of course, any of you who have had dealt with your car insurance or your homeowner's insurance, because of COVID and supply chain issues, replacement costs are higher. So we did shop as best we could, I feel. DJ, you can chime in, but I
think so too.
About the best we could do.
Jake came and saw me, and we were talking about trying to save 70 grand on it, but that was last week, and apparently he must have called you and said that's not going to work.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we aren't comfortable with any higher level of risk to save a few bucks on the off chance that something catastrophic happens to one or more of our facilities.
Yeah, fire or something would be bad.
Yeah. And he did comment, there hasn't been a rate change since 2019. It's just our value keeps going up.
Yep.
So that's pretty good.
It's just sort of one of those tail end consequences of the improvements that we did district-wide, right? So.
And then cyber, you'll see the price, the premium's going down, but we are doing an increase in the limit based on a recommendation. They recommended 2 to 3. We're going to go with the 2. And then workers' comp, you'll see, was a large increase. Our claims have been up. We went from a 1.07 mod to 1.51. So if we have a good year and we have a bad year fall off, hopefully that trend will start to go back down.
Kind of 20, 21, and 21, 22.
Yeah, that 3-year
And
bubble,
19,
right?
20, those three just got us. If you look before,
Right, we're like 80,000 or something last time I looked. And then, like you were saying, because there's some governance and oversight from your department, Angie, not to put you on the spot, but that we feel like we've got better control of that than we maybe had 3 or 4 years ago.
So, yeah. So if you're looking for approval on that.
Motion.
Second.
All right, we have a motion from Director Donnellinger with a second from Director Ward to approve the fiscal year 24 liability and work comp insurance renewal as presented. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thanks, Marcy. And next up is the contract for audit services with CLA for the fiscal 23 audit.
So this also went before the Finance Committee, and it is an increase from last year. So the recommendation was to bring it to the school board, but then next spring, go out for bid and see if we can get a not to exceed per Director Dondelinger.
Well, a couple of notes. I don't want to be overly verbose because I was pinch hitting for Director Ward on this committee, but I've been on this committee the year before. First of all, the total cost of the audit as presented was like $36,000 plus some hourly stuff that could come into play.
Exactly.
That's actually, for an audit of a $100 million budget is a really good deal in the realm of audits. So we were very, very comfortable recommending that we stick with them for a year, just because if we switched auditors this year, Mary, who does our audits, has done our audits previously and has some intrinsic knowledge of how our beast operates, right? So there's some efficiencies in her process that reduces the overall hourly cost associated with chasing rabbits around in that audit. And then to look at it next year, if only to keep CLA honest, to go out to bid again. Just as a side note, Bergen KDV was one we were going to go out to bid with last year.
I can't remember. I think they bid.
They just got sold this week, so. A little tidbit there, but so we're, I would say, again, I don't want to speak for you, DJ, but I feel very comfortable with this as presented.
Yeah, I'm fine. I can make a motion to accept.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion from Director Donnellinger with a second from Director Spear to approve the contract for the fiscal year 23 audit services with Clifton Larson Allen. Any further questions or discussion? Hearing none, those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And last of the Marcy show here would be the approval of the Northern Pines contract for 2023-2024 as presented.
Only thing to note on that, there is no price change on the general services. The wind time is going down, and then the social work services at BLC is going up, but that is paid for with neglected and delinquent funds, so similar to its title funds.
Of course it is. I'll make a motion to accept it.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion from Director Donnellinger with a second from Director Ward to approve the Northern Pines contract for 23-24 as presented. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you, Marcy.
Thanks, Marcy.
Thank you, Marcy. Thank you, everybody. This was a marathon of stuff. We actually did a good job with that.
Getting done now, though.
So yeah, from there, we just have committee meeting updates to go through real quick. So on the curriculum and instruction and staff development, Director Spear.
So we covered off on the local literacy plan, the ACOMP plan, and the new curriculums that you heard tonight, and those were kind of the meat and potatoes of that meeting, so covered it.
Next up is long-range planning and facilities, DJ.
Well, we met with Reed, Director TC, and went through some stuff. You know, they wanted to get some stuff done with the sports fields, and we've got some LTFM issues that we need to work on. And with Washington, it sounds like that we'll be back. Everyone will be back in there in October. We might be able to have a board meeting there in August, September. But other than that, it's rolling right along. They're working from the top down. They're cleaning it. Carpet's going down. Painting's getting done. So that thing's coming around.
Yeah, you and I walked that building not too long ago. It looks
Yeah,
great.
it didn't look like that, though.
No, it didn't look that good yet, but
But it's coming, so. And then he just kind of laid out a list of long-term things that we'll have to get more familiar with. And the finance deal, we pretty much have been through all the finance thing tonight, so I think you know all that.
All right, next up is informational. So Sarah with the Brainerd Public Schools Foundation.
So the Brainerd Public Schools Foundation group had their end of the year retreat, and so we celebrated all of the great things that have happened this year for the grants and the scholarships and the funding. and events, and it was nice to recap and revisit some of those great things. We wished Jason Atwater and Katie Hokinson well. They're stepping off the board, so we'll be recruiting a couple new members. And Matt Holmstrom takes over as president of that group with Nick Hagelin as vice president and Jason Gonringer. And they will be putting out a job description for the hiring of, still to be determined what the title of that'll be, but some sort of events coordinator to join that group. So doing great work.
Thank you, Sarah.
Yep.
Next would be Equity Task Force. Will be a light one because I think we've had a board meeting since the last time we met, didn't we? Or no, was there another meeting?
Yeah, there
Oh,
was
great. Well,
another
I must have missed it.
Yeah, I think you might have been there, but it was just kind of a wrap up. So there are plans being made with area churches and nonprofits to plan events for Indigenous Peoples' Day in October. The group continues to explore ways to create inclusive and welcoming language training on responding to bullying and harassment situations for student and staff. Representatives of this group intend to present a summary of the recommendations that this task force has made for social, emotional, and behavior supports to the board in July or August. And our task force was really supportive of 40 staff recently completed 4 days of restorative practice training on using circles to build community and relationships in the classroom. According to Candace Burkhart, she said every participant has unanimously said they would recommend this training to a colleague. We had representation from every district site from EC through grade 12. And then further discussion will continue as this task force plans for the future work of this committee as it relates to the district's strategic plan and our priorities.
Yeah, I would say on that restorative practices training, I was fortunate enough to be able to address that group before they started their training that morning.
Oh.
And it was really cool to see the kind of the unique sort of diversity and complexion of the group as a whole. It was a really eclectic group of people that chose to come voluntarily and partake in that training. I think it's going to be fascinating to see where we're able to go with that, with partnering with MDE on some of that stuff. And then I guess anything else, Michelle?
Nope.
Okay, then next up is Business Services Report with Marcy again.
Just going to note on the financial report, the only thing that is an outlier is community ed. Same story, different day. Look at pre-pandemic levels, 1920, we were at 74.12. So we're getting back into the norm. That's it. Any questions?
Thank you. Kind of covered a lot of that in the budget. Thank you. Superintendent's report, Dr. Hahn.
Just graduation was fantastic. It was one of the best nights ever. So just, again, shout out to the amazing staff that make great things happen for our kids. Think about the hundreds that it takes every single day to get one kid from pre-K all the way to graduation. So I'm just very grateful. We have lots of work ahead. It's an extremely busy summer. There won't be much rest. I'm looking at our administrative team who look extremely tired, but they're going to keep plugging away this summer with us. Summer school started today. Saw lots of smiles and was really fun to watch little kiddos jump off the bus. And excited to be back at school, and it was a resounding yes. So we have summer school and credit recovery and lots of things running through the month of June. I want to personally thank Tani Flowers. Tani's been with us 17 years, has made, boy, has the world of early childhood changed in 17 years. And you've navigated those changes extremely well. It used to be that kids could come and play and take a nap, and now when they come into pre-K, we make sure they can do math and write and read and keep pushing them. So, and we've grown immensely, like you said. I think Director Ward talked about, you walk in that building, it's an extremely busy building. So Tani, can't thank you enough. I hope you fail resignation and come back and support us. Not that I want anybody to fail, but you can fail on that, come back. But then I'd like to welcome Martha Smithson. Martha Smithson will be stepping into that role and taking over leadership of our Warrior Early Learning Center. So we're excited for that. And I do say with all sincerity, so if you look at this team that's still awake and with us, there's a lot of work and a lot of responsibility to make Brainerd Public Schools run. And if you look at everything that took place this year, we made it to that finish line from transportation. I'm looking at you, Fran, and the 3 to 4 o'clock in the morning to the 8 o'clock at night as we navigated that. Principals, our kids come with more unique needs every single day, and you're responding well. Teaching and learning, every day's changing. So I appreciate that. Everybody, takes all of us, and I would like to say, boy, summer's here, and we're gonna rest a little bit, but we're gonna be busy. So, very grateful for all of them and the work they're doing on behalf of our students and our families and community of ISD 181.
Thank you, Heidi. I won't read through all of the future meetings, just a couple of notes in here. I believe the Equity Task Force meeting for tomorrow was canceled.
It was.
And I also believe the board retreat showing 8:30 a.m. Oh, actually, we are not, are we not? I
You're
thought we
at
were starting
11 a.m.
11 a.m. and we're at the Chamber of Commerce. There's a conference room at the Brainerd Area Chamber of Commerce.
Next to Walgreens?
No, yeah,
Yes.
yeah, like right
got
next to Ace Hardware,
got it.
right where Bladeck is.
Yep.
And that's, I believe, the open agenda for now. So with that said,
Motion.
To
Adjourn.
close.
Nope, we're not there
Yeah,
yet.
I'm entertaining a motion to go into closed session. First from,
shit, we gotta do that.
first, a motion from Director Donalinger. Sorry, it's getting late. Did somebody second?
I'll second.
Second from Director Brecken. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. And so we will vacate the room and go